I call this the November 26, 2019 meeting of the Morrisville Town Council to order. Our adopted values include dedication, integrity, courtesy, and innovation. Please silence all cell phones while in council chambers. I'd like to now recognize our Sergeant-at-Arms this evening. Officer Rebecca Wilhelm is originally from New York City and has been a police officer for almost 2 years. Officer Wilhelm was a petty officer in the U.S. Navy for 4 years and continues to serve her country and her community. Thank you for being here this evening. Invocation this evening will be by Council Member Steve Rapp.
Thank you, Mayor. Please bow our heads in prayer. At this pre-Thanksgiving Town Council meeting for the town of Morrisville, we pray that we are ever mindful of opportunities to render our service to fellow citizens and to our community, keeping in mind always the enduring values of life, exerting our efforts in those areas and on those things upon which future generations can build with confidence. Let us continue to strive to make a better world. Tonight we pray for the brave soldiers of our United States Armed Forces, wherever they may be, and thank them for defending our freedom every day. We pray for those families who have lost loved ones this year and to anyone who is suffering from illness. We pray for the hungry and homeless. We pray that you give the council staff and our engaged citizens the strength and wisdom to continue to lead one of the most diverse, inclusive towns in North Carolina and the United States, the town of Morrisville. Finally, during these divisive times and amidst all the recent gun violence in our country, we pray for President Kennedy's vision for peace. Quote, a genuine peace, the kind of peace that makes life on earth worth living, the kind that enables men and nations to grow and to hope and to build a better life for their children. Not merely peace for Americans, but peace for all men and women. Not merely peace in our time, but peace for all time. We pray for all these things and look forward to a good meeting this evening. Amen.
All who are able, please stand and join in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance.
Flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we adopt tonight's agenda, Town Council policy is to review and ensure there are no conflicts of interest or appearance of conflict of interest with any items on the agenda. Does any council member have any such conflict?
None.
No.
Okay. Is there a motion to adopt this evening's agenda?
I move that we adopt this evening's agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. That carries unanimously 6-0. Public address will occur at 6:30 p.m. or following the completion of the item in progress. If council is hearing another item during that time, staff will complete the item and receive public address for up to 30 minutes, then resume regular item discussion at the end of the public address period. We're now at item 6, the consent agenda, and I'm going to be looking to remove one thing from this consent agenda, but let me go ahead and say that there are 6 items on the consent agenda this evening: a resolution authorizing the police chief to award a service sidearm, a resolution amending personnel policy to include updates related to the Munis HR payroll system conversion, a resolution authorizing the town manager to execute contracts related to Morrisville Community Park Phase 3 and Crabtree Creek Nature Park, and the approval of the October meeting minutes. I would like to request we move item 6C, the resolution authorizing the town manager to execute contracts related to Morrisville Community Park Phase 3 and Crabtree Creek Nature Park from consent agenda to just after item 8A, which is the action item part of the agenda.
About after 8B. There's 2 items under item number 8.
Okay, yeah, because I had my red line had something a little different. So yeah, it would be right after 8B. Does anyone have anything else that they would like to remove from the consent agenda for discussion? Okay, is there a motion to adopt with that amendment? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that carries 6 also.
And we
So-
need to adopt the consent. I need to.
And is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended?
So
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, that carries 6-0 unanimously as well. We are now at item 7. There are 2 presentations this evening: the retirement of Senior Officer Christopher Gill and a proclamation recognizing Food Insecurity Awareness Week. I'd ask Patrice Andrews, Police Chief, to recognize Senior Officer Gill at this time. I'm going to go in front.
Good evening. Good evening, Council. Good evening, everyone sitting in the audience, town staff. So tonight is bittersweet. We are recognizing and celebrating the retirement of Senior Officer Chris Gill for his service not only to the town of Morrisville, but to the citizens of our state as well. So a little bit about this guy standing next to me. He started his law enforcement career when he graduated basic law enforcement training in 2003 at Wake Tech, just down the road a bit. He served with the Creedmoor Police Department until he came to Morrisville in 2004, and he just fell in love with our town, and our town fell in love with him. And so during his time here, he has made a tremendous impact, not just with the town itself, but also with the officers that he has mentored and trained as a field training officer, people in crisis that he has helped as a trained crisis intervention officer. And he has ridden that motorcycle a time or two as one of our town's first motorcycle officers. And so I could go on and on about Chris, but most of you all know him and know his service and know the value that he has made and the impact he has made to this town and how much he will be missed. I don't go too many places without people asking me if I know him. I'm like, oh yes, I know Chris Gill. So without further ado, I am honored to stand with you and to celebrate you tonight. We will celebrate you again next week, but tonight we are going to let council honor you and present you with a plaque for your retirement. So congratulations.
Can we all come up front? You guys all want to come up in front? Just like to say we really appreciate all your hard work and years of service to the town, and I think he just would just say a quick little something to you. So we can start with Ms. Johnson.
So, I cannot believe it's been 15 years, that's first. And I can't believe how casual you are already. I'm used to seeing you in uniform. But, Chris, I personally want to thank you for your years of service. You are instrumental in bringing this department to where it is today. We are now a nationally accredited agency, and that's because of your efforts and your hard work. And so I thank you on behalf of the citizens. Thank you for all you've done to make Morrisville this wonderful place that we feel safe in. So I wish you happiness and success and joy in retirement. Well deserved. Well deserved.
Make your way down.
She said it so brilliantly. I don't know what to say, but I just want to thank you for your friendship. You're one of Morrisville's finest police officers. We've had a wonderful friendship and conversation over the years. Always have a smile on your face. You're always able to look at things in a positive way, and that's really nice to have that. So I wish you all the best in retirement, and please come back and visit us.
Chris, I gotta say, if you look at him, this guy, I always say he has a style and is Mr. Cool, you know. And as the chief rightly pointed out, even the hardest of the hardest situations, he smoothly talks it over and gets it done. I happen to be talking to him on a couple of and so easily he takes it, and one issue done, next issue starts. And I think that's where I think our town would miss, and I'm sure you have trained a lot of the people there, and I've taught how tough trainer you are. So that has given the best to them. And thanks for all your service for the town.
Thank you very much for all the years that you've given to the town because your family has also given you to us. So we thank your family for, the last 15 years as well. Family is so important to us, and I'm sure it is to your extended family in Morrisville. So thank you for that sacrifice. And I have felt safe because of your service, and the way that you handle yourself is a very significant kind of model for all of our officers and also residents of the town, because if you keep your cool, they settle down, they think rationally, and we have a better outcome. So we thank you for that.
Thank you for everything you've done. I really appreciate it. Our neighborhoods all feel much safer. You said that helped set the standard, as Councilmember Johnson also indicated. So thank you, and thank you for the hard work, sweat, and it will continue because of people like you for your efforts and contributions. Thank you so very much.
Your big celebration is next week. Is there anything you'd like to say at this point?
I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to serve the town of Morrisville. It's a wonderful place to be. This is kind of bittersweet. Bitter because I'm leaving everyone, but it's sweet because I can go home and sit down for a while.
Thank you.
Sir.
Now at item 7B, it's a proclamation recognizing Food Insecurity Awareness Week. I'm going to read that from my seat, and then I'm going to ask a woman from the audience to join me up front for the presentation real quick. Whereas the USDA reports that 11% of American households are food insecure, and whereas 33% of senior adults admitted to the hospital may be malnourished, and whereas North Carolina is the 10th hungriest state in the nation, with almost 604,000 households that do not have enough to eat, and whereas 223 seniors in the town of Morrisville, ages 65 plus, live at or below 200% of the poverty level as per the 2013-2017 five-year average census data, and whereas almost 1 in 5 children, which is 24.6% in North Carolina, face hunger on a regular basis, and whereas good nutrition is critical in the first years of life, and childhood food insecurity can lead to developmental, health, and behavioral problems, as well as make it more difficult to concentrate and do well in school. And whereas in the 2 public schools in the town of Morrisville, 160 students qualified for free and reduced lunch during the 2018-2019 school year, and the local Luther Green Community Center is a congregate meal site offering seniors the opportunity to meet new friends and engage in social activities while having a nutritious meal. And whereas the Town of Morrisville Parks and Recreation Department partners with the Western Regional Community Advocacy Committee Food Security Action Group to serve meals during the summer to youth under 18 years of age living in Morrisville, and whereas Morrisville residents are served by local food pantries, Meals on Wheels, and other food assistance programs comprised of volunteers and church members who want to help their community, now therefore I, T.J. Cawley, Mayor of Morrisville, on behalf of the Town Council and residents of Morrisville, recognize November 25th through 29th, 2019 as Food Insecurity Awareness Week and encourage all citizens to donate food items to those agencies serving our neighbors that are combating food insecurity and support the efforts of the Western Regional Food Security Action Group. Now I'd like to ask Karen Morant, Director of Wake County Western Human Services, to come up to receive the proclamation. Located right over in Cary on James Jackson Avenue. We really appreciate all the work that you do in the Summer Meals Program and all the other services that you provide to Morrisville, Apex, and Cary. Thank you very much for everything.
Thank you. Thank you for your leadership.
You bet. And we're going to hear a little bit from her during public address. Thank you.
Sorry.
There are 2 action items this evening. The first, now 3. The first is a resolution appointing advisory board and committee members. Council was briefed on this item at the November 12th meeting. Ballots were completed and submitted to the town clerk on November 18th. Council will be asked to complete any necessary runoff ballots and take action on this item tonight. Eric Smith, Town Clerk, will facilitate the balloting. Mr. Smith.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. As Mayor Cawley previously stated, council was briefed on this item at the November 12th meeting. Council completed electronic balloting and submitted the electronic ballots to the town clerk by November the 18th. Once again, staff would like to thank council for their efforts and patience in completing this new balloting method, which we believe streamlined the balloting process and will minimize the time dedicated to balloting in the actual meeting. The ballots were processed with the following results. Board of Adjustment, Gerard Falzon was selected for reappointment to a regular seat. Planning and Zoning Board, Sanjay Akarya was selected for reappointment to a regular seat. Tim Toteri was selected for reappointment to an ETJ seat. Christine Roebuck was selected for appointment to an alternate seat. And Christine Roebuck's previous alternate seat will be vacated upon her appointment, so council will be asked to select another applicant to fill the remainder of her term, which will expire in August 31st of 2022. The Environment and Stormwater Committee, Michelle Wright was selected for reappointment, and Janet Bunger was selected for appointment. One vacancy remains, and further balloting will be required. Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources Advisory Committee, Jim Gillis and Kim Knox were selected for appointment. 2 vacancies remain, and further balloting will be required. Public Safety Advisory Committee, Valerie Bednars was selected for appointment. 2 vacancies remain, and further balloting will be required. Joyce Day, for the Senior Advisory Committee, I apologize. Joyce Day, Linda Lyons, Nina Weiland were selected for reappointment. 1 vacancy remains, and further balloting will be required. On the ballots that you have before you, any candidates that were appointed during this initial balloting have been removed from consideration for the runoff balloting. And also, to mitigate the need for future balloting and to streamline the balloting process, staff recommends a future discussion regarding a policy adjustment to allow the second highest vote recipient within each ballot to fill any remaining seats. Also, as previously discussed, staff will continue to investigate different methods to complete this balloting process. And prior to beginning the balloting, is there any questions regarding the item or the process? Mayor Pro Tem?
Mayor Pro Tem Scroggins-Johnson, please.
Thank you. I really did appreciate the opportunity to do the balloting offline. It gave me some time to do some reflection and so forth. The challenge I have is when individuals are applying to multiple committees, and we need to allow for that because they can only serve on one committee at a time. So there is a challenge there. One of the committees that has very restrictive kind of assignments is the Planning and Zoning Board. And several people have applied to Planning and Zoning and then other opportunities. When we do the balloting all at the same time, we're able to look across and say, okay, how does this affect the other? Because we can only have one person in one spot. I think we should have a separate balloting process just to fill the Planning and Zoning and alternate seats, and then the secondary process in its entirety to fill the remainder of the committee seats. Tonight, we're going to continue our process. We do have an alternate seat for the Planning and Zoning Board, but we did successfully fill 3, but we didn't fill them all. And I feel that's not exactly fair to people that have applied to multiples, because I'm not able to look at the entirety of the applicants at the same time.
Yes, ma'am.
With that Planning and Zoning. So that's a suggestion, but it's also kind of giving an opportunity for everybody to be qualified for Planning and Zoning at the same time. The people that successfully were slotted in to the other committees cannot apply tonight for the alternate seat.
Yes, ma'am. Understand.
Thank you,
We can
Mike.
investigate that also.
Yep.
That sounds like looking for more discussion on this process before the next go through.
Yes, sir.
Fill in our ballots. Be sure to print and sign our names up front. back. Okay. So we're going to keep that item open while the tallies are done. And we're going to move on to item 8B now, which is resolution approving a major site plan for Alta Morrisville located near the southwest corner of Morrisville, Carpenter Road, and Davis Drive. Council will be briefed and asked to take action on this item tonight. Natalie and I, Planner 2, will brief this item.
Thanks. Good evening, Council, Mayor. I'm going to pull up the presentation here. Good evening. Tonight's item is an administrative request. It's for a major site plan for a development known as Alta Morrisville. The subject property is located near Davis Drive and Morrisville Carpenter Road. It is for a 250-unit multifamily development. It also includes some live workspace as well as some co-working office space. This property and project should look familiar as it came forward this year for a conditional rezoning that was approved back in February. So that's why it looks a little bit familiar. It's coming before you as an administrative request now because per the UDO, any multifamily over 50 units has to come before you as a major site plan. So as I mentioned before, this is a conditional neighborhood activity center zoning. The property is hatched here. It's the pink with the hatching. It's surrounded by more neighborhood activity center to the north and east, as well as a small parcel that is low density residential. It's a single family property. To the south and west, the property is bordered by the town of Cary, with some vacant property to the south and a single family development to the west. Just some basic parcel information. The property will be about just over 19 and a half acres after the right-of-way dedication. Again, it's a multifamily development, 250 units total, and it is within the town corporate limits. All of the dimensional standards that are set forth in the UDO have been met. All of the minimum setbacks, maximum building height. The development provides more parking than it is required, but it's also providing more tree preservation than is required. And it is much less than the maximum lot coverage with only 33% proposed. So again, as I mentioned, this conditional rezoning for this property was approved back in February. The ordinance approving that conditional rezoning had 20 conditions, all of which are met by the design of the site plan and the implementation of the project. Wanted to go through just a few of the 20 conditions and how they've been met. There was a condition for live-work dwelling units facing Morrisville Carpenter Road. That has been proposed within 14 units with over 15,000 square feet of area. There was also a requirement to have at least 2,000 square feet of commercial or office space. That is being met by the proposal of a co-working office space located in one of the buildings. There is a children's play area. The cross-access requirements have been met. There's actually the construction of the driveway to the CVS property. All the agreements have been obtained, and that will be constructed as part of the project. There's payment in lieu for turn lane improvements at 2 intersections nearby. There is designated tree save area, which they've gone above and beyond for. There were conditions about the limitation on that building height in certain areas, especially along the western property line, that have been met, as well as the number of units was capped. There was also a condition about enhanced landscape buffers along the western and eastern property line by the single-family homes, and that has also been met. And then finally, there are also 20 workforce housing units that are going to be provided in this development. So I wanted to quickly show you the site plan. The proposed project has 4 buildings, the largest one with the majority of units, as well as the leasing office, co-working space, and majority of the amenities. There's also a smaller building along Morrisville Carpenter Road that will have 31 units, as well as 5 of the live-work units. And then there are 2 smaller buildings that will have a total of 10 units, and those are the townhouse-style apartment units. Towards the rear of the site, towards the tree save area, you have the children's play area, the dog park, and those amenities. And then the last thing I wanted to point out was the greenway that's being proposed just off-site on the southern property line, and that greenway will be constructed by the developer, and that's actually located in the town of Cary. So here you have the landscape plan and tree save. All of the landscape requirements are met or exceeded by UDO standards. Street buffers, landscape buffers, all of the parking lot landscaping has been met, and there's also the enhanced buffers along the western and eastern property lines, just with some additional plantings because they border some single-family homes. And then I also wanted to show you the tree save area. All of the hatched area is the tree conservation area on the property. This is the elevation for Building A. This is the smaller building along Morrisville Carpenter Road. It will have 5 of the live-work units on the ground level. This is just a snapshot of what those live-work units will look like. They differ from the other residential units as they have direct access from the outside. They also have more glass and are more of a storefront appearance, and they have some more electronic outlets and things like that for to accommodate the workspace. The elevations for Building E. This is the larger building on the site. The top rendering is what you will see along Morrisville Carpenter Road. That's where the leasing office will be, co-working space, some of the live-work units. And on the bottom is the longer side, and that is would be behind the CVS building and the Luter property, the single-family home. As you can see, there are no balconies here on this portion of the building, and that was one of the conditions of the rezoning as well. So they have met that. The co-working space is located in Building E. This is open to the public as well as obviously an amenity to the residents on the site as well, and it's over 2,000 square feet. This elevation is just showing one of the 2 townhouse style buildings where there'll be a total of 10 units. As far as the transportation and impacted improvements, a TIA was conducted as part of the conditional rezoning, and the trips generated by the development shown here are realistically going to be less than that because the TIA was originally conducted for the proposed conditional rezoning, which was for 290 units. This is only going forward with 250 units. So excuse me, staff anticipates that this will be much less than that, probably around 1,500 total trips every day. As far as Morrisville Carpenter Road, there's right-of-way dedication as well as some road widening and additional lane. There will be a payment in lieu for a planted median that will be built in the future, as well as payment in lieu collected for 2 of the intersection improvements, Morrisville Carpenter Road and Davis Drive, as well as Davis Drive and Morrisville Parkway. And as I mentioned before, 0.2 miles of greenway in the town of Cary. That is providing a connection to Crabtree Hatcher Creek Greenway. As a part of that, there will also be a mid-block crossing on Davis Drive. We will be collecting a parkland payment in lieu. That is a per unit value that will be collected. And then also, as far as school impact, Wake County gives the town of Morrisville, we have our own calculator, and it estimates that 90 students would be generated from this development. Staff believes that's a little bit high. The calculator just does it based on the density. So this is I think, a little bit high, but that is what the calculator does generate. Staff is recommending approval of this administrative request. It meets all of the standards in the UDO, also meets all of the standards of the rezoning. We do recommend 3 conditions. The first, just reiterating that it will meet all of the rezoning conditions. The second is for the payment in lieu for the planted median along Morrisville Carpenter Road. And the third is for the Parkland payment in lieu. This request did go before the Planning and Zoning Board earlier this month. They recommended approval with a vote of 3-2. Town Council, after reviewing this, may approve the application, or if Council doesn't believe that it meets the UDO, can deny it or approve it with additional conditions. On the screen here is the resolution for approving this major site plan. Staff is here to answer any additional questions that you might have, as well as the developer and their team.
We'll start with Mayor Pro Tem Scroggins Johnson, please.
First of all, thank you so much, and thank you to the applicant for all the work. This has been a journey, a long journey, and the proposal is very, very solid, and it meets every condition that we had discussed over length. I'm very pleased with that. I wasn't completely clear on what action council can take for the major site plan as submitted versus major site plan that meets the UDO. Is there a difference? Because it sounds to me as presented that all of those items did meet the UDO. So I just wanted to be clear.
Sure. In staff's opinion, it does meet everything in the UDO, but Mayor and Council, you have the right to your opinion as well. And if you don't believe it meets one section or something like that, then you're able to do that.
But staff believes that as submitted,
it
does meet the UDO.
Correct.
So that is very helpful. Thank you very much.
Councilman Rao.
Just a couple comments. I want to thank the applicant for this plan. I think it's very clear that the amount of investment when you combine the transportation, sidewalks, and parks is about $1.3 million, which I think is a significant infrastructure investment in our town. And I also think that I would ask them for the exchange place, the co-working space, to just make sure that they're communicating with our chamber and with tech, because I think that could be something we really need in Morrisville, more places for our entrepreneurs to go to. That's just an ask. And the final ask is if we can just make sure that we're communicating to the adjoining neighborhoods about this project in terms of timelines and how things, and I'm sure they're doing that, but just for the public to know that that's important to us. And that's really all I have. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Just had one thing. I don't remember hearing mid-block crossing on Davis. Davis is so busy. It'll actually be at a light?
Yes.
Okay.
If someone wants to come elaborate on that, that would be great.
Nice to see you again. If you
Good to
could
see you as
your
well.
name and your role for the record, please.
My name is Caitlin Shelby. I'm Managing Director for Wood Partners. And you may recall we discussed a pedestrian crossing as part of our rezoning efforts related to the Greenway extension. And so that's what Natalie was referring to, and that will be at the light at Davis Drive, very close to where the Greenway connection essentially connects to Davis Drive.
Where Morrisville Market comes out.
Correct.
Okay, that
That's
makes
right.
sense. Thank you
Yep.
very much for clarifying that.
Sure thing.
Councilmember Schlink.
I know this has been a years-long process. This wasn't originally what I think was looked at originally years ago, and so I appreciate everybody's involvement, especially Wood Partners in this. I think you're an honest broker. I think you're going to do the town well by this. I think you're making a great statement for the region also, and I look forward to this project coming forward. For staff, I think also it's going to connect. This greenway that they're putting in Cary is going to help connect, I think, eventually to get to 55 on Cary's side to get through.
I believe so.
And that's going to be great, and that'll help our residents be able to go from Crabtree Park or above it in North Raleigh all the way to the American Tobacco Trail. So this is a great link. And staff, I appreciate all your time and effort with this. This is unusual in my mind because when I didn't think it was going to come back as administrative approval, because usually the first time we see an administrative approval, we've never seen the project. But this one, we had an opportunity to get involved with the project and help guide it. So I think that process is great. I think, again, Wood Partners, you guys were you did great things for the town and making this project happen. So I appreciate everybody's efforts. It's a best practice we can use going forward. So thank you.
Sir. Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Natalie, and thank you for the link to the actual construction plans. That was really helpful.
Yes, absolutely.
I know that when the project was coming through council, there were great concerns about screening, drainage, lighting. There were all kinds of concerns, and the construction plans really address just about every issue. So I'm really pleased to see that. I'm really pleased to see the enhanced landscaping and the tree preservation areas that are on the plans and will help tremendously with screening. So on one of on the land, there were a couple of sheets that showed the landscaping, and there was one, if you look all the way over to the right, and I'm saying this for the citizens that may want to go out and look at this, because there are some single-family homes that are more closely to this project and more affected than others. Anyhow, if you look at the sheet, you can see just the amount of enhanced landscaping that is going to be a part of this project compared to what is required, which is pretty good to begin with because we've worked on that in the UDO. So I was really pleased to see that landscaping. The other thing was the lighting plan, which was something I was concerned about. So I appreciate that sheet being in there as well. And if things are built to specifications, it looks like the lighting won't be, there won't be adverse light on a lot of the neighbors, and I was really pleased to see that. The drainage that's a part of this, because there was concern about stormwater runoff, and I believe that looks like that was taken care of as well. So I just want to mention that. And then the last thing that I'm going to mention, because I looked at a lot of things on the plans, but the last thing was the location of the dumpster. And having been through another situation here in town where a dumpster is located closer to some single-family homes, I was really pleased to see what the location of this is, that it's not going to affect too many people or anybody, quite frankly. Hopefully won't affect anybody. So I just wanted to mention that there are, of the 20 conditions you mentioned, they were addressed pretty well. So I was pleased to see that. So I want to thank the applicant for their efforts because we were all checking. So I appreciate that. And I just want to reiterate a comment that was already made about making sure that the neighbors are in the loop and kept informed. And I know the applicant made that commitment early on, and we want to make sure that continues and that the neighbors are informed as this moves forward and certainly as construction comes.
Member Garamella, please.
I agree with most of the stuff said in the before me, but I got to be very honest. This is a win-win situation because the neighbors and our concerned residents raised all the red flags, which was addressed properly by the builder and to our attention too, and then we could amicably come to a solution which was good for both. And I personally believe that this will be a good project moving forward, and with a landmark 20 affordable housing was pretty good. I hope future complexes will be more in a way will come forward as you guys did. That is critical. And but end of the story, I think it's a project where we want to see how it will come out. And do we know the timeline of it? Because I heard during the rezoning it was a phased approach. So I didn't see anything about the timeline here.
So we expect, if all goes well as we wrap up our permitting, this is obviously a critical part of that, and we're on schedule for this potential vote tonight. We expect to be under construction in March, and it will take about 12 to 13 months before we actually turn our first units and open our first doors to residents. But we will be doing all the road work in conjunction with the larger project as well. So we anticipate that all of that road widening will be done certainly before we open our doors to the residents as well. So we'll hopefully start construction in March, and then it'll be about a year before we complete it. And then we're about, I believe, 18 or 19 months before we're completely finished with the project.
March of 2021.
That's right. So very consistent with the schedules we talked about during our rezoning.
That was one of my thing, because we were kind of closely watching the Morrisville Carpenter widening with that, and that was, okay, that's helpful. Sure. Thank you very much.
Sure thing.
Remember, you had
I just forgot 2 points. First of all, we adopted an affordable housing plan, and I do want to appreciate, the commitment to affordable housing. I think it's a great way to begin our journey in that area. And then the second idea that I had is just, as we look at transit in Morrisville, we just adopted our, comprehensive transportation plan. We had public open houses on transit as a way to take traffic off the road and putting more people in buses and things like that. So I just would be curious as to the conversations we can have on terms of bus locations near, and I don't know where the bus stops are going to be, but it seems like it'd be a nice place to just better connect our residents. So, sorry I didn't mention that first time.
Okay, great. So, questions or comments? I'd entertain a motion on Resolution 2019-253.
I'd like to make a motion to approve Resolution 2019-253-0, approving a major site plan Alta Morrisville located near the southwest corner of Morrisville Carpenter Road and Davis Drive as submitted.
I'll second.
Any further discussion on that motion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that carries 6-0 unanimously. Thank you very much to everyone who was involved, including the residents who gave so much good input. We are past our 6:30, so we'll go to public address now. We are now at the time for public address. Members of the public may sign up to speak on any issue of their choosing and will be provided 3 minutes each to share. To be fair and respectful of everyone's time, I will thank speakers when 3 minutes have elapsed and ask them to conclude their thought. Speakers can then provide any additional thoughts in writing or via email to the town clerk or the council at their convenience. As a reminder, speakers will not discuss matters that are subject of public hearing, which we don't have any tonight. Thank you for your cooperation. I'll call speakers by the order they are signed up on the sheet. Our first speaker is Karen Morant, then Margaret Broadwell, and then Patty Cheng. So, Ms. Morant, if you could, your name and address, residence for the record, please.
I'm Karen Holmes Morant. I reside at 202 Johnstone Court in Durham, North Carolina. My second home is 111 James Jackson Avenue in the town of Cary. Let me thank you, Mayor and Council, County Manager Page, and all who are assembled for the opportunity to be here. As we are in the week of Thanksgiving and for the proclamation of food insecurity, I come with a thank you. I am the director of the Western Human Services Center, which we like to say is the satellite office of our headquarters in Raleigh. I have found much gratitude in the partnership to carry out Human Services mission, and that is to partner to facilitate full access to quality health and human services with the community. Since 2010, with a study driven by data to serve all residents in Wake County, I have found great partnership with the town staff, starting with the planning department, as we have done a 2-year examination of how to bring county services here. With the support of your town manager leadership, that partnership has continued through your Parks and Recs, led by your director, my friend Jerry, who allowed us to engage the county residents of Morrisville through our community health assessments, because it is the goal of Wake County Human Services to help facilitate access to quality health and human services. I stand here today full of gratitude because we have realized great progress in just opening the doors of the Western Human Services Center in 1 year. We have had a constituency representing both all of the towns in what we call the Western region, including Apex, Cary, and Morrisville. And with your mayor joining that community constituency and serving for the last 3 years, we have been advised of the community needs and interests, which has led our Community Advisory Committee to address major priorities in affordable housing and food security for the last 3 years, looking to continue our work in addressing substance use given the opioids crisis and workforce development. So again, I thank you, the elected officials, and your town staff for the great partnership with Wake County Human Services. Happy Thanksgiving.
Amen. Thank you, Ms. Morant. Our next speaker is Margaret Broadwell. Welcome back, Ms. Broadwell, former mayor.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And good evening to you, Mayor, and all your council members. It is a pleasure to be before you tonight, but I come with a serious request. For the sake of time, because I do tend to get a little lengthy sometimes, I have written my remarks to you, of which you should have a copy also for your records at this point. As I say good evening, my address to you tonight is regarding an ongoing violation of the town of Morrisville's noise ordinance by a property owner, Mr. Vinnie Gold, from the property known as Gold's Plaza, located at 117 International Drive, Morrisville, North Carolina. Gold's Plaza is marketed as a banquet conference center and is zoned industrial management. It was built in 2004 without adequate structural insulation to prevent the noise level from parties, events, etc., from leaving the building, which has routinely negatively affected the adjoining residential properties, many of which were built prior to 2004. I've lived there since 1984. The families in my residential subdivision no longer enjoy the quality of life we once had due to the noise bombardment we experience on a regular basis from Gold's Plaza. Mr. Gold now also has another offending tenant, the Elevation Church, which starts extremely loud amplified music every Sunday morning around 6 a.m. and doesn't completely finish until lunchtime. In an effort to stop this practice and return our subdivision to a more normal living environment, I and others have tried the following measures, all to no avail. 1, we've called the police numerous times up to and past midnight to register a noise complaint. We've also worked with the Town of Morrisville Code Enforcement Officer to levy fines. We've telephoned Mr. Gold to ask his cooperation and seek resolution to this situation. Mr. Raymond Reynolds of Clements Drive, Morrisville, and I met with Mr. Gold, his project manager, and Pastor Matthew Drew of Elevation Church. We gave all parties a copy of the Town of Morrisville Noise Ordinance, noting that the noise of this level should not be before 9 a.m. or after 9 p.m. We suggested Mr. Gold consult with an acoustical engineer to learn of possible remedies and asked Mr. Gold to inform us of his progress. None of this effort has solved our situation. Both Mr. Gold and Pastor Drew have done nothing to lower the level of noise or to develop a plan of action to alleviate this violation over time. Essentially, our efforts have been ignored. So tonight, I'm asking this Morrisville Town Council to direct the staff to enforce the ordinances already on your books. This continuing violation of the Town of Morrisville Noise Ordinance should not be allowed to continue. The authority to stop it is in your hands. Please act on your citizens' behalf and do what is right. And I thank you for your service.
Sharing this information, we appreciate it. Our next speaker is Patty Chang.
Good evening, Mayor and Town Council and all present here tonight. My name is Patty Chain. I live at 304 Millet Drive along the Morrisville Carpenter residential corridor of town. And I'm here to speak tonight about the Parks and Recreation funding for the Crabtree Creek Nature Park and for Morrisville Community Park Phase 3, which borders my neighborhood. And let me go ahead and apologize in advance to the Director, Jerry Allen, for my comments, which he is not expecting. Okay, so basically, I would like for you to seriously reconsider or possibly deny the funding for the $300,000 necessary for detailed plans for this park, and moving forward a nature park that will cost $3.7 million for building another yet boardwalk through swampland by Crabtree Creek. We already have a park, or in our Parks and Recreation system, a boardwalk that goes through the swampland on the other side of Crabtree Creek along the Crabtree Hatcher Greenway, which was funded at $5 million by federal funds that did not have to be provided by Morrisville taxpayers out of our public funds. This is, it passed conceptually through the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee, but that's only because they're not the ones who have to allocate the funds, the public funds, to move forward this project. And that was a very controversial meeting, according to member Lou Urani, who happened to be telling me the story as he was helping me fix my garbage disposal in my kitchen sink, just to give you an idea how well connected Morrisville can be. There was a whole story about how upset he was from this meeting, where he says that he wishes you could hear the audio from that meeting. Mr. Robert Kent, with whom I had served on the Citizens Budget Performance Assessment Panel, was visibly upset, asking if we have $3.7 million for this project, why is it we never have a community funds for a community center for our seniors in Morrisville? The prioritization for this project is highly questionable. The funding, the fiscal utilization, and how did this project become so prioritized above other projects that could be better use of our money? The tennis courts along between Carpenter Park and Preston Creekside, it was not asked for by local residents. You're taking down more trees to destroy the bunny rabbit sanctuary and the wild blueberry patches that currently exist there. Anybody who's serious about tennis will go to the Cary Tennis Park. It's not been well researched, and I ask you to reconsider that funding. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Okay, that's it for public address for tonight. So we're going to continue with our action items. The new action item 8C.
Could we do maybe 8A?
Good idea. Do we have a report back on 8A, the committee appointments?
All right, the ballots have been processed, and for the Planning and Zoning Board, Josh Michael was selected to fill the alternate seat that was previously vacated. For the Morrisville Environment and Stormwater Committee, Jessica Sleegar was selected for appointment. For the Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources Advisory Committee, Swati Modi was selected for appointment. One vacancy remains, and further balloting is needed. For the Public Safety Advisory Committee, no applicants received the necessary votes, so 2 vacancies remain, and further balloting is needed. And I believe you have those ballots before you.
that everybody? Down. So you got everybody's, okay. Okay, so it'll be a couple minutes. So we'll go back to the item removed from the consent agenda, the resolution authorizing the town manager to execute contracts related to Morrisville Community Park Phase 3 and Crabtree Creek Nature Park. So that was removed from the consent agenda by me, so I'll open with comments unless you want to give a little bit of an update first. You're welcome to do so. Jerry Allen, Parks and Rec Director.
Just wanted to give a short overview of the item for those in the audience who may not have had an opportunity to see it. Town staff is bringing a recommendation to council tonight to approve a resolution that would allow the town manager to execute contracts for design of 2 park projects. That is the Morrisville Community Park Phase 3 and the Crabtree Creek Nature Park. These 2 facilities were a part of our 2018 master plan. There were concepts for both of these projects in that master plan that was approved by council, and we have been moving forward with things from that master plan, trying to execute those recommendations that were approved as part of that plan. These parks have been in our CIP list for many years. The first one was developed, conceptual plan was developed in 2001 as part of the overall plan for Morrisville Community Park. And that project has been through a couple of cycles with our CIP planning. At one time, we had hoped to fund that project with bond funds. In the end, another project needed more of those bond funds, and so that project was put on hold. The Crabtree Creek Nature Park project was originally designed in 2002, and that project, again, through several CIP processes, has had some revisions to it, but what you see today on that plan is a system of walking trails, parking lot, picnic shelters, and a all-accessible playground, which we're recommending because that is an amenity that we do not have at any of our other facilities. Our other facility playgrounds have accessible components, but not an entirely accessible playground. So that is a distinction that I want to make about what we're recommending for this site. The design contracts, there are 2, so these are separate projects. We're not asking for both as one project. The design contract for CLH proposal for Crabtree Creek Nature Park was $341,420, and for Morrisville Community Park was $169,000. That is full design. That would go through a conceptual plan process. That would also go through a site review process. They would do a thorough review of the sites, looking at soil testing and all the conditions that we would need to plan around or work with. And those site designs and concept plans would come back to council as well as back to the public for review. And then that input and the final designs would go forward into construction documents that would go through review by the town and all permitting so that we would have buildable plans at the end of that process. A couple of notes to mention on the demand for these facilities. That same 2008 master plan process resulted in a survey that showed prioritization for capital projects for the department. The number 2 project in that priority rating was nature parks. That is something that we don't have in town, is a dedicated space, nature or natural area. And so that was the number 2 thing on that list. That master plan process also involved a level of service process where we analyzed facilities that we had in town based on our population and on demand for facilities in our community. And one of the aspects related to the Morrisville Community Park project in that level of service was the fact that in 2017 we showed a deficit of 2 tennis courts at that time. And for our projected population, that plan was on a 10-year base. Our projected population in 10 years, we would have had a deficit of 5 tennis courts. The Morrisville Aquatic and Fitness Center project is actually going to net a loss of 1 tennis court. And so looking at that, we would be at a deficit of 3 tennis courts currently and 6 on the 10-year horizon. We have built 3 courts at Church Street Park back in 2015. And as anyone who's been out there at a busy time will tell you, there are many people waiting to use those courts. We get calls all the time with questions about, time limits on those courts. When can we have new courts in town? So we believe that they are a very desirable product for us to put on in our new park projects, and that our community has a great demand for those. With that, I'll answer any questions that you have, or if anyone would like to see any of the site plans, we can pull those up and review those as well.
Gone through a lot of work for all of these plans and parks, and really appreciate all the efforts. My one concern is that given our funding needs at this time and the recommendation of the Parks and Rec Master Plan that we do not have sufficient park amenities to meet our town need now or in the build-out, I believe that land acquisition would be a higher priority at this time. I think it's important for us as a council to consider securing land for more parks and open space, and then circling back to enhance the current parks that we do have, is my thought that I'd hope that my colleagues would consider. We did indicate to residents in 2012 that we'd be improving Morrisville Community Park, and that's a smaller dollar amount. So I think that I'd hope that we consider approving that one and putting the other one on a slight delay, because I believe that although it's been, the Crabtree Nature Park has been in the plans for a while, I don't think that's been a real focus, and I don't know how much we vetted what we want that park to look like over time. We know Nature Park, but I know that's changed a little bit. And I also agree that we do have something that meets the amenity of walking through woods as the Greenway has occurred, and that occurred since we had this need in the past. So those are my thoughts. So I would hope to just hear from the rest of my colleagues if they have thoughts about that, and would they be willing to consider approving Morrisville Community Park to go forward. And the other one, I think we can talk about it during retreat and see where that would fall in our thoughts. For Tim.
I appreciate the update by the director and also the public comments, because I think it is a significant undertaking to plan for new parks, and we are under have less parkland than we want. We do have parks payment in lieu that is attached to every development that we have in town. So there will be current and future revenue generation for parks. And land acquisition is one aspect, but the parks payment in lieu can only be used for parks. So you're only thinking you want to buy more park land in your proposal, I assume, because that's what this money can be used for. Considering both projects, I recall discussing in length the nature park, the aspects of having a nature park in the town that we don't have today. I recall talking about the inclusionary playground, which we don't have today. The fact that this is along that greenway that's going to be continuing from the train trestle. So that is coming already, and we want to make sure that we're ready with that. So to me, the nature park is meeting a need the town does not have today. The phase 3 for community park is an expansion. And one of the issues with the expansion is that you will be removing trees along the greenway that we have today. The beautiful lush tree canopy, some of that will be removed for tennis courts. So we actually are hampering that nature through the community park. So I am not in favor of the community park expansion 3, mostly because we didn't discuss it in length. It impacts the trees, but I am in support of doing a detailed design on the nature park so that we understand the different aspects of that park. We do not have to fund it in its entirety from the start. We can phase that in and add amenities over time. Again, we don't have an inclusionary playground. We could apply for grants. We don't have a nature park per se in the town anywhere, and this would be a first. So I'm not so much in favor of
saving all the money for land acquisition, but I am in favor of the detailed design for the nature park. And I'm not so wild about the Phase 3 community expansion at this time.
Thank you. Councilmember Schlink.
I think I'm in agreement with with what the mayor said. As I've said before, I think I kind of look at it also that to add to that argument would be that we have areas of town which have no parks. So I think there's an equity that we need to consider with neighborhoods. Going north, there are huge areas of the town that don't have neighborhood parks or a park that they can walk to, get to with the greenway. We have things like that. So I would be more in favor of using the money towards that. And coming back, I agree with the mayor that the survey was done years ago. We wasn't as professional as we're doing it now. So I'd like to bounce some of that going back, also with the new inventory of what we have with Greenway. But to me, putting a park down there in this area is just kind of overkill. We already have park area there. I don't mind enhancing some of it. That would be my view. I know tonight we're going to talk about a core center vision. In there, we talk about a large community park. And I'm back to some of the parameters of that was trying to leverage recent and planned public investment. So I think that was one of the errors we made last time. I think if you're going to make a park of this side and this magnitude, why not bring it closer to a town center? And I think, Jerry, didn't we add some inclusive aspects to the Indian Head Trail Park? We had a group that came with kids that came and donated money, raised $15,000.
There is a project in the current year budget submitted for a purchase order now to add accessible equipment to the parking lot across the street.
And we could do that at Church Street Park. We could do it to other parks, Northwest Park, all through the area. I mean, with extra funding, of course. I'm just saying.
Yeah, some of those playgrounds would require additional space within the existing footprint. We couldn't necessarily add equipment, but yes, there is room to expand some of those other playgrounds.
So my big fear would be just kind of going through a design process and then having that money just kind of wasted. And then, if we went through a design process and we didn't act on it for years, you'd have to come back and redo it. So we kind of had this discussion years ago about the Northwest Park and about phasing it in, and there are aspects of the Northwest Park which still haven't got phased in. And we got back on that, and then back then we were only talking about $1.7 million for a park that was really one of the first parks of McCrimmon's. Thank you.
Councilmember Rowe.
First of all, I live a lot on the tennis courts and try to take my son to hit and go out there and hit with citizens, and I definitely believe we have a shortage of tennis courts, and I believe that I am concerned about the tree cutting and preserving more trees moving forward in Morrisville, but I'm in favor of the Morrisville Community Park at this time. I think that we sort of led citizens to believe in the last parks bond that it was going to be funding community park, and I think that there are citizens out there that want us to build it, so I'm in favor of that. In terms of the nature park, I mean, I'm open to moving it off the consent agenda to talk about it more, but not necessarily to admit that I'm not going to be in favor of it. I still am concerned. So, Jerry, let me ask you. You mentioned comments about it's been on our CIP plan, but also citizens surveys have come back that. And I'll say that the context of my comment is that a few months ago, Councilmember-elect Fender came into Town Hall, and she did mention about her concerns of a lack of open space in Morrisville. Mm-hmm. Since that time, since I do run a lot, I run around most of Morrisville as a runner, I've seen that this is true. I think there is a lack of space for people to go and play. It's just that, for me, it's the price. Mm-hmm. And that's what's giving me a little bit of heartburn is paying that much money for something not at the expense of other things, but the fact that we can't do a senior center, we can't do a community center, but and then at the same token, we don't want to do something that's not going to be completely all in. So, yes. So those are just my thoughts about how we approach.
Yeah. If I may answer that question about the survey, that you asked. The survey I was referring to was the citizen survey that was done as part of our master plan. That citizen survey was done toward the end of 2017 as part of the master plan project. That is considered a statistically valid survey. It was a mail-in survey, so it was a truly random survey of the community. And the nature park category was ranked as the second highest priority. And that survey was a priority for investment in facilities and amenities. We also did surveys on programs and other things, so we had a well-rounded input. But the nature park did score as the second highest rated on that particular survey. Excuse me. So I think there's, I hope that answers your question about that particular one. Obviously, I think everyone will agree. We have more items on our CIP than we currently have PIL funding to build. We'd love to build them all, but somewhere we have to start. And so, what we're proposing is a first couple of steps. But if it's council's decision that we look at those differently, or maybe take a closer look at some of those plans, then we understand.
So, Jerry, you gave us some good recap of what's happened with Parks and Recs and with these two projects and the planning that has gone on over the years and the years of well-researched and surveyed plans. Also, I don't think you mentioned the Part F. Can you just talk about the Part F application that's coming up that will help us fund these projects?
Sure. Every year, the state of North Carolina accepts applications for recreation projects from across the state for a program that they call the Parks and Recreation Trust Fund. Those are funds that are allocated by the state every year, dedicated for recreation development. Part of that money is dedicated for projects at the coast, and part is open funding for competitive grant applications, from local recreation departments. Parks and Rec Trust Fund deadline this year is May 1st. And so if council were to choose to approve design of the nature park, our recommendation was we would then come back and recommend to council that we apply for grant funding from Parks and Recreation Trust Fund. That is a very competitive grant process, to be honest. We've been fortunate over the years to have received part of funding for several projects. We have also, at times, not received funding when we've applied. And so, but we would definitely recommend that as part of this process to help offset some of those costs. And the grant application, the proposed design contract also includes assistance from CLH Design with preparing some of those documents and submitting that grant. Conceptual plans, cost estimates, things of that nature are all required for that grant application. So,
thank you.
Thank you.
So just a couple of comments. I'm in favor of both of these projects. And I'm going to try not to repeat a lot of what was said, but I think it's important to remember that there was a commitment made by this council, quite frankly, to move both of these projects forward. We adopted the 2018 master plan that had these projects in there with the priorities that Jerry just talked about, with the Nature Center being the number 2 project. So for me, when I adopt a master plan, I'm making a commitment to the public that I am going to pursue these plans as best I can. So that's number 1. Number 2, this council just adopted a budget in June of 2019. That was only a couple of months ago, where we allocated funds for both of these projects for the design. So once again, for me, that's a commitment to our citizens that we're going to follow through on these projects. And so now here we are, and we're getting cold feet. And I understand the cold feet. There are a lot of projects. We all know that. We've been discussing CIP projects now for multiple meetings. Jeannie has been great at getting us to focus on all the projects. And yes, there are a lot of projects, but quite frankly, I'm one that believes we can do it all. We can't do it all in 2019. We can't do it all in 2020. We can't do it all in 2021. I know that. I'm not foolish, but I believe that we can do this. I believe we can buy parkland and we can construct and use some of the land that's in our inventory today. I don't think it's an either or. It is not an either or for me. Council's also been talking about a bond in 2020. One of the things that has been incredibly frustrating to me over the years is when we go to a bond, we never have accurate plans and we kind of guesstimate how much money a project's going to cost. Here and we've talked about this as a council, here we are working toward that 2020 bond. Here we are working toward having some plans and better estimates in place that we can potentially put out as a bond referendum in 2020 to be more accurate. And I will tell you, I'm really excited about that. But once again, we're getting cold feet and we're pulling back. And I think that's a mistake, quite frankly. I think we have the opportunity to get some good design work here with help from our public, because these are just concepts. We have not figured out exactly what either one of these are. Well, maybe the phase 3 of the community park is a little more accurate, but the nature park, that's still just a concept. We need a lot more input from the public and a consultant to figure out what should or shouldn't be there. And I'm really excited about the fact that the nature park has the ability to have a entirely accessible playground. That is very different than just putting in some equipment that's accessible to a few. An entirely accessible playground is very unique and very different. And all you need to do is go to the Marla Durrell Park in Cary to see how that's designed for multiple needs. That's what we have the opportunity to do here. And I think that's unique for us, as well as the whole nature aspect of the Crabtree Creek Nature Park. So I'm in favor of both of these. I'm in favor of applying for the Part F grant. I'm in favor of looking at these projects on a 2020 bond. These projects never get cheaper, by the way. If you wait, they'll just get more and more expensive. And so if these are projects that you truly feel that are needed by our community, and I do, because that's what our statistically sound citizen survey has told us, that the public would like a nature park, I'd like to see it sooner than later.
Okay. Thank you very much. Councilmember Garamella.
There are a couple of questions, I think, for Jeannie, too. Like, I remember that we had committed for $500,000 for the design work, and I thought that was just for the Crabtree and not the Part 3 for the Morrisville Community Center. I'm trying to understand that, is that because from my memory, it was $500,000 allocated for Crabtree, or was it combination of both the parks? So I was not very sure on that.
There was funding approved for each park. I believe the discussion, as I remember, was the amount of money that we were allocated at that time for the nature park specifically. And I think that number may have been adjusted back in the budget process, but there was funding in the approved budget for each project as separate funding.
Oh, it's separate funding. So I was more familiar with the $500,000, as going towards, because this did not rise as somehow. If I have not seen, my apology. But the Part F grant, we applied for MAFC, we didn't get it right last year.
That's correct. Yes.
And what makes you think that we should not apply one more time? Is it you can apply multiple times to the same thing, or how does it work? Why do you think the Crabtree Nature Park would be a good one? I know we try our best. It's a very competitive process.
Yes. You can apply multiple times for a same project. By the time the deadline would come around to apply for the aquatic center again, we're going to be 90% finished. And so Obviously, we wouldn't, and the application deadline's May 1st. The funding and actual decisions aren't handed down by the committee until August. And so that project would be complete. The nature park for us, there's some benefits in the scoring of the part of process. It would be the first nature park that we had, which is unique. It would provide some unique facilities, the playground specifically, for our town. And so anytime that you're improving something or presenting something for your community for the first time, that typically gets good attention, and good scoring from the committee. We've had, like I said, we've had good luck in the past. We had Parks and Rec Trust Fund funding for the purchase of land for Church Street Park, for the construction of Church Street Park, also for the construction of Morrisville Community Park Phase 2 was funded with Parks and Rec Trust Fund. So it is a source we've used before successfully. So, but every year is different based on the number of applications that go in and how much funding is allocated by the state.
Okay. And as part of the master plan, I know we have a requirement of one new park too, right? That was part of the master plan when they said the requirement is based on the specs that town of Morrisville needs one new park.
Actually, the master plan, I don't believe, broke it down by number of parks necessarily, but it did break it down, on an acreage basis. And according to the master plan, we were definitely short on overall acreage for parkland. So they did recommend that we look at pursuing and purchasing additional parkland.
And then how much money do we have in, I think PIL is like 5.7 or something, like I saw in the last numbers, Jeannie. But the key is, go ahead with this one. My biggest concern is, do we have sufficient money for the land, which is drying out very quickly? So how do we balance this act? My main question, because design actually gives us a good specs of how much it is in a way, but at the same time, I don't want to lose any opportunities for any new land because that's only getting.
Yes, sir.
Master plan clearly talks about the acreage needed.
It did, yes.
It's hard to balance and how much PIL. And are these two projects bond ready? Or because I can't recollect the chart how it was phased out.
So the goal of a design is to get them bond ready. And as I believe Councilmember Johnson mentioned, having plans that we are ready to go with, make the project be more feasible within the timelines to spend the bond money, and more accurate estimates of the cost. So this initial money, and you did allocate more money for both of these projects than this design work. You would clearly come back and approve throughout this process where the concept plan is going. You would be getting additional public input into the plans and determine if they're phased right, sized right, and how you want to proceed. The design work helps you get there to make those more informed decisions, and it will also make them more bond ready.
Okay, so
if I may, Councilman Garamella, Council has started the work on land acquisition policy development, and staff is working on putting things together. Some of your conversations are, it's more than just parkland that you've talked about, which is what we're trying to put together for those policies.
Okay. Then if I totally agree, because in the previous experiences, if we don't have a good estimate, we don't know, we're talking 3.5, it might be 3.5 minus X number of features in it. That's what we're seeing in Northwest Park too and other parks. How many years will this kind of plan, we will be having different opportunities to come and weigh in, right?
Yes, sir. During the design process, council would have the opportunity to see the initial concept plans that the consultant would present, based on their site analysis and input from council. And so at that stage, if there were changes needed, that site plan could be revised. The process also includes cost estimates at that conceptual design phase and cost estimates as they move further into design and can refine the amenities. And so there are multiple cost estimates in that process, and at the end, when the designs are finished, there's also a cost estimate generated at that point. So there would be very updated information in hand at that time as we're going through the process.
And I think Northwest Park was a good experience for me, where you are given options like a la cartes, where you have this like a gymnasium or like basically play equipment. This is the cost of it if you're doing this one. So is that how it will be put up in the blocks while we design the overall infrastructure for both the parks?
I'm not sure if I'm understanding.
Like, for example, like we had few features that was not put in, and we had to scale it back in Northwest Park. And you had given us an estimate, this is around 60,000. I had seen those charts where each one, how it was phased out.
Right.
So that will be the same thing for this design too, I'm hoping.
That could be part of the process. If that's how council would like to see the information, we could work with the designer to have it broken down that way. Obviously, the cost estimates will be broken down by each part of the project. Site work would be broken down separately from the playground, for example, which would be separate from the picnic shelters.
Yeah.
So it will be broken out.
Yeah, I would appreciate that. And I'm fine because the key is any step forward requires a good estimate, and which we are not good in. And I think investing in something which is needed is only going to get us better estimates in the future and properly plan our resources. That's my take on it.
That was some good discussion. I was heartened to hear that we can try to do it all, because that seems to have been a challenge sometimes. I'm much more this and that. Let's try to move forward with everything. In this case, I think that we do have so many needs: fire stations, public works facilities, town center. We need land acquisition there. That's why I'm hesitant to move forward with a full acceptance of the nature park as it stands. But I'm now more comfortable that the consultant will bring things back. It was my first impression that the consultant was going to take these plans that are in this presentation, pretty much move forward with them. But it sounds like there will be chances for citizen input, deciding and moving this a little bit differently in the direction. Or is this pretty firm? This is $300,000 is going to get us essentially what is shown here.
It will get us something similar to what was shown there. Obviously, some of the amenities, if council chooses to change some of those in the design process, could change. Obviously, we can't go in and say, okay, now we want to completely change gears and go build a structure on the site for that amount of money. But as long as we're staying in the relatively same footprint and relatively same types of amenities, yes, the cost wouldn't change.
I feel that there's been a lot of discussion about the Morrisville Community Park portion. So I think that I'm much more comfortable with that. The Crabtree Nature Park, I'm not as comfortable. The all-inclusive playground, that's great. We'd love to have more details about that, how much cost that is, as compared to walkways that we have to raise over the wetlands and things like that. So that's why I was hoping that we could delay this till after our retreat, and then take a look at it again. But I'm not sure if that timing is really problematic for the bond. So that would be a question.
Actually, thank you for mentioning that, Mayor. One of the things we've talked about with these design works is the timing. And it takes a long time, especially with public involvement process, for that to occur. And while staff would never suggest spend this kind of money without some level of commitment, the design work gets you the information you need to know whether you want to take that next step. So you are not committing that whole amount, and you do have opportunity to say, no, it's not what you want, without expending the other resources. So there are checks in there. Delays of decision, I don't know that there'd be additional information to share, and we would lose several months in starting the process.
And delaying 2 months to start the design process, if that were the decision of council, would also, hurt our chances on our grant funding because we wouldn't have as much time to prepare the documents. The cost estimates and things would be pushed back. I mean, we have a 4-month period now. You'd be cutting that down to literally less than 2 months.
We'll not have all the funds that we need to do everything else. I'd rather have the funds available to buy 2 more park parcels and to move forward wholeheartedly with this one at this point. I was glad for the opportunity to share this and to hear from my fellow council members about it. Did anyone else want to make any more comments before we have a motion? And then I'll try to summarize and you guys can give me feedback.
I'm in support of what we put forward in the budget. So therefore, I think we should I appreciate Councilmember Johnson reminding us, 1, of our commitment to the budget, but 2, of that impending bond discussion that can be more defined if we have better information on the various aspects.
Councilmember Brown, did you have another thought?
Just a final thought. I came into this discussion with an open mind. I want to thank each of you for sharing your perspective. It's been very helpful to me to I think, just move forward with approving this tonight. Helpful discussion.
Okay, so what I heard is that a couple of council members had some hesitancy about moving forward with both parts, but I thought I heard support from at least 4 people for going forward with each. So a motion that said that. Agree?
I'll make a motion if you want. I'll make a motion to recommend. I'll make a motion that the town council authorize the town manager to execute both design contracts with CLH Design.
Second.
More discussion on that motion. Okay, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. You guys have authorization to move forward with those contracts, and thank you, council, for a good discussion on that item.
Thank you very much.
That was the last action item. Now we're at item 9, future meetings, events, and citizen involvement opportunities. We have our annual holiday tree lighting.
We could do an update from the advisory committee.
I'm sorry. I keep on forgetting about that, so I appreciate everyone reminding me. Okay. So we're still on action item 8A.
I haven't finished that one yet.
We're getting her done.
Looks like we might be done.
We're close.
Okay.
We're close. For the Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources Advisory Committee, unfortunately, no applicants received the votes needed for appointment. And for the Public Safety Advisory Committee, Patricia Buchanan was selected for appointment and 1 vacancy remains. So at this point, council could move forward and complete the runoff ballots to select 1 more member for both the Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources Advisory Committee and the Public Safety Advisory Committee, or the seats could be left vacant until the next appointment cycle.
Open to thoughts. Councilmember Garamella.
How about we do that email thing again and then?
Well, the problem with that, though, is we have to actually make a motion in public to put these people on. But we got to do that tonight.
You got to close out the.
We got to close out our business.
Oh, the close out that and then keep this, because we can go all night with this kind of things.
Could.
So, so the best is approve what we have and then go with the email and then first thing, open business on December 10th, close the.
Or we could just.
We could just leave them vacant, I think, if they didn't get the votes
There-
necessary.
It's 1, right?
One
For
on
each?
There's 1 vacancy on each board.
Spring, is that accurate?
The spring, yes, sir.
Okay.
A few short ones.
Okay, do we have general consensus to do that? We'll
That's
leave those
fine.
2 vacant and we'll accept everything else. Would you mind summarizing who we're going to appoint? And then we can just say we approve that as stated. I think that's usually.
Okay, council has appointed Gerard Falzon to the Board of Adjustment, the Morrisville Environment and Stormwater Committee, Janet Bunger, Michelle Wright, and Jessica Sleeger were appointed to that committee, and that committee has filled all vacancies. The Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources Committee, Jim Gillis, Kim Knox, Swati Modi were selected for appointment, and there is one vacancy remaining on that committee. Performance Measures Advisory Committee, council has selected Asatha Naik and Rashid Zalani to that committee. The Planning and Zoning Board, council selected Sanjay Akarya to the regular seat, Tim Toheri to the ETJ seat, Chris Roebuck to the alternate seat, and Josh Michael to the second alternate seat. The Public Safety Advisory Committee, Valerie Bednars was selected to a seat. And Patricia Buchanan was also selected, and one vacancy will remain on that seat. The Senior Advisory Committee, Joyce Day, Linda Lyons, and Neela Weiland were selected for reappointment. And Renee McCoy was selected for appointment to that committee with no vacancies.
Make that motion.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that passes 6-0 unanimously. Thank you very much for helping us through that process. Well done. And those people who were appointed will be notified for holidays, perhaps, or?
They most likely will be notified this upcoming week after the Thanksgiving holiday.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we're done with action items this time, right? Unless I'm okay. Wonderful. Now we're at item 9, future meetings, events, citizen involvement opportunities. All of these are always available at townofmorrisville.org. We encourage you to check out our website. First thing coming up is our annual holiday tree lighting. It's on the easy-to-remember Friday, December 6th at 6 p.m. You'll see signs around town about that, and it'll be on social media. We're looking forward to seeing a lot of people there. Also, later in the month, there's Cocoa with a Cop. That's Saturday, December 21st, and that's going to be over at our police station between 5 and 8 p.m. That's always a really nice event for the family, so please put that on your calendar and save the date. Now we're at item number 10, council and manager comments. Town Manager Page, do your staff have any additional comments this evening?
I do. We have a new fire truck that was delivered today. This will be Ladder 23, stationed out of Fire Station 3. Again, just delivered. Staff will be working over the next several weeks to learn it and work with it a little bit before it's put into service. The fire department and communications and staff will be working on how to commemorate that, and we'll be providing more details. I have limited details, but the truck is here.
That was essentially custom made, is that correct? It was made to order?
Yes, trucks like this are typically custom made, so yes, sir.
Great news. Council comments. Like Councilmember Rao is just about ready.
Does anyone want to go
I
first?
just wanted to ask the color of the ladder.
Want to clarify on that?
I don't know.
Isn't it a red
I'm
ladder?
going to say red.
Yeah. I think they sent out a post about that.
Okay.
Great. Councilmember Rao, please, can you get us started, and then Councilmember Schlink?
I do have a couple of comments. Just a couple of things that I attended. This week was Entrepreneurship Week in North Carolina, Global Entrepreneurship Day. So I attended the NC Idea Innovation Summit, NC Riot, and the NC Tech Awards. I want to congratulate Anil Chawla, who lives in Kitts Creek. He's a Morrisville resident who successfully exited and sold his company Archive Social for, I think, $50 million. And he was given an award, so we're very proud of him. And Secretary Boyette won the Public Sector Award of the Year. At Triangle J delegates, I welcomed Maria Thompson, the State Information Security Officer, to provide a cybersecurity briefing, and I'm going to be sharing her presentations with council and staff. The third thing is I want to congratulate the Wake Competition Center and Superior Gymnastics. We were there on Saturday, Councilmember Giamella and Liz Johnson and I, And it's just really, really beautiful center, and I think very exciting project for Morrisville. It just seems like yesterday we were talking about working on this project, and we look forward to future champions training there. The final 2 points I'll make are two exciting things that I think it's a great way for me to end my comments. The first is I was very enlightened to recently read in the public schools, I think, article about Wake Tech Early Career College, and the possibility of that being located at Wake Tech RTP. And just a few weeks ago, I had a meeting with President Rawls, who was very optimistic about the prospects of Morrisville having a high school, which would be focused on cybersecurity and technology and STEM. And so I think it's just really, really exciting that we're a part of that conversation. And I think it's incredibly important that we continue to push for more schools in Morrisville. The final thing I'll end with is we all love comeback stories. That's why I love Rocky movies. And the greatest comeback story that I can imagine is the Outlet Mall. So I was able to attend the panel that Sarah Gaskell moderated at the NCARP meeting, where we heard from Mehul Patel, the CEO of Equator Capital. And it just seems like yesterday, in 2017, we were talking about going to the mall. I had the chance of meeting the executives at Equator Capital. Numerous meetings there led to introductions to staff. And, you know, here we are 2 years later, him announcing that he forecasts this being a $52 million project when it's all said and done. And it's called The Factory, and it's going to be a campus-like environment. And it's the first kind of development in the Triangle region. So I think it's going to be a huge win for Morrisville, and we should all be very proud that this investment's being made. So I want to thank Mr. Patel for his investment. He lives in New York City. His father lives in Morrisville, so he has even more reasons to come back. But I think this is going to be an exciting project, and it's a great comeback story. So thank you.
Councilmember Kling.
Just a couple questions, but before I get there, I'd like to wish everybody happy Thanksgiving, safe travels, wherever you have to go. A couple things. Town Manager, did I understand, did we receive LAT funding for the airport extension, or assigning an engineer to help us? Isn't that similar to that?
We have submitted the airport project, but we have not gotten any answers yet.
But we'll hear that later in the next year? Okay. And then the Thornburg subdivision, I know during the process of that, we talked about how their trucks are going to enter and exit what roads. And it looks like it's going well, I think.
I believe that's the case. We have not had any issues there.
Okay. Then just one more little tidbit. When we did the Park West Village, one of the first things that they did when they started doing that development was years ago, that section of NC 54, there was no right-hand turn. It was very limited, so one of the first things they did was go ahead and extend that out. And I'm wondering, can we do something similar like that when we do Morrisville Carpenter at Church Street? Can we, because it backs up right there where people want to make the left-hand turn, and it backs up from the light, but if we could work with DOT and kind of make it so we can open up maybe 8 or 10 feet so cars could drive around that backup who wanted to turn right at the railroad crossing? It's a lot more smoother.
I will have to get more information to be able to answer that question.
But that's where I noticed over the years that it backs up. And the other thing is, once it starts, can they also then, when will they limit the left turn out of Church Street?
Yeah, we'll get some additional information on sequencing.
I think that when they look at it, that's some partially backup. Okay, well, thank you.
Councilmember Johnson, please.
So I just got 3 quick things. First, I want to congratulate our Morrisville 101 graduates who came early before the meeting tonight to receive their diplomas. And I want to say congratulations and thank you for taking the time, all of you. I know there's just a couple of you left here at the meeting now, but thank you for taking the time to learn some more about your government, your staff, and for your participation. So congratulations to 20, was it 20? 19. Thank you, Jeannie. Thank you. 19 graduates. The other, also want to congratulate the police department and the fire department on their turkey bowl that kind of got rained out. It was supposed to be flag football. It ended up being basketball. And in my eyes, everybody was a winner. And I'm stealing this from somebody else because you're all our heroes. So I want to say thank you to the police department and the fire department. It was a fundraiser, and I heard tonight that they received enough food to make 7 baskets. And I think the goal was 10. So if you still want to donate, I'm sure they would welcome your donations of non-perishable food items. So that was a success. Councilmember Rao and I were there, and that was really a fun event. And then also last week, Mayor Pro Tem Scroggins-Johnson and I went to the Campo meeting where there were some exciting studies that were talked about during the meeting. One was on our commuter rail project that's going to go through all the triangle. And then the other one was, of course, on our Wake Transit Plan. And they were exciting, except that there were really no results. It was an update to say we're going to have the results in January or February. So I will tell you, I'm looking forward to January and February of 2020 to see the results of both of those studies, because they're very important for the Triangle region and very important for the town of Morrisville as we look at transit and, of course, commuter rail and a commuter rail station right here in Morrisville. So just wanted to give those quick updates.
Member Garamella.
I want to congratulate our Morrisville Police Department for the accreditation. I know that's a wonderful thing to have. And I think you join with the fire department and the Parks and Recs and also even the Public Works. Thank you for all that you do. Happy Thanksgiving to each and every one of our residents, staff. Martha, thanks for all that you did. I have one question for the police chief. This is something that was brought up by a resident who was just driving through Parkside Valley. The 2 school zones which are placed, the signs, are really not the zone because they walk on the crosswalks way after that. So the logically, the school zone makes no sense for speeding because technically the kids go all the way to the intersection of Parkside and Willingham. There, I think the school zone should be till that place. It makes more logical because the kids are still in that area walking. So that was just an observation. One of an elderly gentleman, he came and said, I don't understand why those signs were placed there. If you can look into it. That's all from me.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
All the comments tonight have been brilliant, and so I think there's just one thing.
I'll echo that. Happy Thanksgiving. I also enjoyed learning a lot at the National League of Cities Summit in San Antonio, Texas last week, from affordable housing to early childhood education, water infrastructure, census, to discussions about the 50th anniversary of Earth Day that's coming up on April 22nd, 2020. There was over 4,300 elected leaders and staff from all 50 states, plus Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico at the event. They all shared ideas to help everyone provide more effective governance throughout the nation. I look forward to many discussions on these topics as we bring our own ideas and strengths to bear on the unique challenges facing us here in Morrisville over the next year. Okay, so
Where is the next NLC?
The Congressional Cities Conference is up in Washington, D.C., March 8th through 11th, and then next year's City Summit is in Tampa, Florida, near next Thanksgiving. So a lot of fun advocating, going to Washington and speaking to our legislators, especially Congressman Price is always very friendly and accommodating with his schedule. Okay, so that's it. We are now at a point where it's a good time to take a break. So a 10-minute break, come back at 8:05, and then we'll be reconvening down there for a work session. We appreciate DFI coming back to see us again. So please come back, 8:05. Thank you. 8:06, we're going to come back into session now. Why don't we take a second and discuss how long we'd like this discussion to take, and then I'm going to pass it to Mark Page, our town manager. We're doing a town center core project update and refresh. First ask what's the estimated time that you think, and then we'll.
Yes, so this is not intended as a discussion or decision-making at all by council. We have been talking about our town center project since I've come to the town of Morrisville. And when we engage DFI is really when it sort of caught steam and we've put some substance to what we've been talking about. But it has morphed and changed over the time we've talked about. So this is really just a quick refresh before we head out for the holidays, because we will be asking council to really commit to moving forward and making some final decisions so we can get this project back out to RFP after the first of the year. So our real only goal is for Eric and his associate that he'll introduce to present. I'd say the presentation part is 20 minutes or less.
Yeah, 20 minutes or so.
And then really we want to know if there's other specific information or questions that we need to provide to you to continue that conversation. That is our only ask tonight. So based on you, 30 minutes or so is my estimate.
Does that sound good to the council?
1 hour.
So,
1 hour.
Yeah, maybe 45 to an hour. That's probably what you said and what we heard.
Well,
this isn't our first rodeo.
yeah.
29.
So the good thing for you is you do not have to hold anything down.
Talk really fast. You want to reintroduce yourself?
Sure. Hi. Happy to be here. I know it's been a few months, but I have been sort of peripherally involved during the land use policy planning efforts, the sub-area plan for the town center. Eric Thomas, for those that don't remember, and this is John Nelson, a DFI fellow, his first time here with me at the council chambers, but he's been a fellow involved in the town center project for over 6 months or so. But he also is very familiar with this area. He grew up, less than 2 miles from this area?
I grew up on Weston Parkway. This is home for me.
So, MBA at Keenan Flagler right now, graduating this spring. So, happy to have him on board, knows this market very well, knows all the development in and out that's going on. So, a great asset to have on our team.
This project might go past the spring, just so you know. Trying to put down some roots.
That's right. No, we're hoping to have it all done by the spring. So again, as Martha mentioned, I will be controlling the presentation here. Yeah. Again, giving an overview of DFI, the program at the School of Government, talking about the project overview, timeline, how did we get to where we are today, what did we work through, what are those public interests that we evaluated, the development selection process, the developer that was on board, Armada Hoffler, talked through that negotiation process, and then talk about, as Martha mentioned, those big decisions that you all will need to make moving forward if we are to go back out to solicitation to attract a private developer for the first phase of the town center core. So that's the overview of the presentation. No decisions tonight, no discussion, just really sort of here, sort of laying out what's coming down the line here. All right, for those that aren't familiar, Development Finance Initiative is a program that's out of the School of Government, formed in 2011. We essentially provide real estate development expertise to local governments across the state. There are a lot of questions that came to the School of Government of developers are reaching out to us. We don't know if we can act in this way in terms of participating in a real estate development project in our downtown core. The School of Government, being a team of experts, lawyers, they knew that they could say, yes, you can operate in this way in terms of partnering with developers. And here there's different general statutes that you can operate in, but there was the next question from the local governments was, well, should we? Is this advisable? And then they couldn't answer that question. And so that was why DFI was formed in 2011, to answer that question of, well, should we? Does this make financial sense for our town to build a town center, to redevelop a mill, to essentially activate this brownfield in their downtown core? So those are the kind of questions that DFI was developed to answer in 2011. Our process mirrors the process of a private developer. It was really fascinating seeing Wood Partners here. I know the efforts that they've undergone in order to get this development through. We mirrored the exact same process, DFI as a private developer. except for one thing that we really focus on: the public interest at heart, at the core, at the very beginning. So what we do is essentially establish a set of guiding public interests, which is our measuring stick throughout our process as we do a market analysis, as we bring on architects or landscape architects to evaluate site plans and site constraints and opportunities, and then ultimately developing a financial model that then structures a public-private partnership to essentially get to that center core of a development plan and a building program. So this is not a straight line process that as we've undergone with our work. It is iterative, it's cyclical. We may find out one thing from our financial model that says, let's go back and reevaluate our site plan. Maybe we need to get more density, less density. Maybe it doesn't fit the public interest right. So that's how we sort of see our building a development program that works for the local government. All right, so now I'm going to talk about the project overview, how we got to where we are today. I know this has been 4 years of work, but DFI was brought on in 2015 to perform a feasibility assessment for 2 scenarios for the town center core. One was on town-owned property, approximately 10 acres at that time. I know you all have acquired several other key properties for road networks, for other amenities in the downtown core, but essentially evaluating those 2 scenarios. All right, what do we have control of now? And what about a larger scenario? If we were to acquire more, what could that town center look like? So we performed a parcel analysis. We evaluated the market for residential, for office, for retail, to understand what is the market reality of what could we build here that could actually be filled up with tenants, making sure that anything that we propose there's a market reality associated with it. We brought on Little Architecture. They're the architects that have designed the Wake County Library. They came on to really get into the schematic concepts for the first phase of the town center core, the demonstration project. Developed a financial model assessing different ways in public participation strategies to build out the first phase. Released that RFP, and then did a significant developer engagement process, trying to find the right developer, and ultimately supported the town through negotiations with the selected preferred developer for the project. So I want to touch on the guiding public interest. I know we've had a lot of conversation about the guiding public interests recently from the retreat last year, but these were the guiding public interests as released within the RFP. And this is endorsed by council, essentially the measuring stick of which all projects moving forward at the point when these were developed should be evaluated. The guiding public interests for the town center core were to integrate higher density residential, office, retail, and civic facilities, to create a walkable town center, create a mix of uses within the town center that complement the existing quality of life and character of the town. Councilmember Schlenk, you noted this one, the leveraging the recent and the planned investments to attract private development. So leveraging those public investments to bring in private development, to make it attractive for private development to come in. Preserving Morrisville's historic crossroads, architecture and small town feel. The linking the existing communities with town center via greenways, trails, sidewalks, and parks. And then establishing recreation and open spaces for community gatherings, cultural events, and town farmer market, which includes the town green, essentially the gathering spot within the concept. So I'm going to talk, this was animated, sorry for all the lines jumping across this image here, but this is essentially a set of public facilities that we've discussed and identified as part of the town center core as key elements within the town center core vision. One is the Wake County Library, which we all know it's nearing sort of completion and construction. The Town Green Farmers Market was an identified major sort of public amenity as part of this development concept. Community Center, there was a little just sort of drawing a box to fit a 20,000 square foot footprint community center, to be determined exactly how that was going to be programmed out. And I want to make a clarification on the large community park. It's not a large community park, but it's a wetland center. So it was essentially, there's wetlands along the rail line. It was using that area as an open space, conservation area, educational facility for a wetland center, as we all discussed. And then small pocket parks throughout the development concept. So these are smaller plaza-like spaces for gathering, for retail spillage out of the sort of retail areas, more urban sort of design areas. So those are really, and all that intermix and intermingling with mixed-use development, ground floor commercial spaces, residential above at certain scales between 2 and 4 or 5 stories of development, not going above that, which is essentially the white boxes. So in November of 2017, the town issued the RFP, town council endorsed, for the first phase. We wanted to essentially do a proof of concept. Will this concept work for this larger town center core vision? This was called the demonstration project. And what I'm showing in the image here is the ground floor of the demonstration project. So it was a 4-story building, 4 stories of development, but it was a mixed-use, multifamily development with ground floor commercial space wrapped around a parking deck, all encompassing the Wake County Library on approximately 4 acres of land within the town center core. Armada Hoffler, the developer, the preferred developer was selected in early 2018 based on their response to the RFP. Town, you all had approximately a year of negotiations with Armada, and we know their sort of ins and outs of how they change programs and concepts and asks of you all in terms of making it feasible for them. And then in early 2019, after the town retreat, negotiations with the development partner were essentially broken off, saying let's end this process with them. So I'm just going to walk through how the town concept evolved, because you all had a lot of say in the ask that Armada Hoffler came back to you all in terms of how can we modify this, morph it to better reflect what you all would like to see. So originally the concept that they provided was 170 residential units, 20,000 square feet of ground floor commercial space, essentially mirrored the image of what was put out within the RFP. Total private investment, approximately $37 million, acquiring the land from you all for $760,000. I'm not going to get into all the specifics of the program and the details, as more will come out as it evolves over time. So Armada Hoffler, they sharpened their pencils. They did a little bit more due diligence and said, really make this pencil out. We want to expand the development site rather than just 4 acres. We want it to be about 6 acres of land, and that expanded the program to 226 units. Incorporated some townhomes, 35,000 square feet of ground floor commercial space, approximately. They increased the size of the parking deck, some surface parking, and then again, as I mentioned, the site increased to about 6 acres. They were going to acquire the land for $1.1 million, and then the estimated incremental real estate tax generated from this project was approximately $200,000 plus whatever the townhomes would generate. They would sell this off to another developer to do those. But they had a significant public ask as part of this program. And I'll get into why they said the ask increased. But they had a real estate tax abatement as part of their pro forma, approximately $150,000. And then essentially the large one was, let's let the town take care of the parking deck, and the town would provide essentially a parking rebate, and then they would then lease spaces from the town at a reduced rate within the parking deck. And it would be a town-owned parking deck. All right, we wanted to move for that town. We wanted to sort of say, can you provide us a better option that isn't so costly to the town? And so Armada Hoffler in December 2018, so less than a year ago, provided this concept here, which was shrinking the residential development down to 180 units, but it was also shrinking the parking deck down in size to essentially a 2-level parking structure, 245 spaces and some surface parking spaces. So again, the 6-acre size, the town green grew in size a little bit, but again, there were concerns of it being tucked back behind some commercial development. But approximately a 1-acre size town green with townhomes adjacent to it with ground floor commercial. This is when Armada Hoffler changed sort of the structure and model of their developer pro forma, in that it became a ground lease where they would lease the land from the town to build on, and then the town would still participate in essentially funding the parking deck through a parking incentive, which was approximately $375,000. Again, their concerns, and I'll walk into the next slide right here, and why they needed more money than what was additionally identified as the public partnership strategy within the RFP was construction and operating costs were rising significantly. They had higher interest rates for borrowing. Their rental rates were not increasing at the same rate as the operating expenses. But essentially what it boiled down to was their returns that they expected to see from this project were higher than what other developers that we talked to needed to see for a project like this. There was concerns over this being phase one of the town center core development, that this is the riskiest phase of the town center core. After it matures, after multiple phases, yes, we know it's successful. We know the commercial can be successful here off of Town Hall Drive. But during this phase is when they essentially said they needed the most public participation with less down the line. So that is Armada Hoffler's essential year of work to try to find a program that works for you all, and it just didn't align with what you all felt were comfortable with participating in that first phase of the project. So at the Town Council retreat in 2019, there was a significant discussion around, okay, are these public interests that were a part of the RFP process, do these still align with what you all would like to see within the town center core? There was discussion of, all right, maybe it just needs to be a large park with a few commercial spaces, or should it be affordable housing at this point of the development strategy? So town staff and DFI, we essentially examined those public interests and wanted to reaffirm those with you all. There was a few elements that sort of rose from those meetings over those couple months. There was a potential for expanded public facilities. So that means town hall offices, meeting spaces for seniors for public access, and parking. There's maybe a parking need for the town. There was the idea of incorporating affordable housing into the town center core, and then public transit. Is there a way to get accessible public transit on this site to essentially alleviate some of the traffic concerns from sort of single loaded vehicles on these roads? So that we synthesized essentially all that conversation down to a few bullet points of here's other things that we would like to consider for the town center core. So that's the summary of town center core. What I want to lay out and primarily leave time for sort of you to think on is, how do we go back out, find the right developer to execute on the vision that you all want to see for the town center core? Knowing that there's still significant interest in seeing that town center, that meeting place for this community, this sort of 0-0 coordinate of town come together. So working with Martha and DFI here, our process, we have a lot of work that we've already done to date. There's a lot of knowledge and site analysis and market analysis that's been done. And so here are the three sort of decision steps that we see that you all will have to make in the upcoming meetings, retreats, when you all can make these decisions. But one is determine the preferred development program. That's the scale, mix of uses, and location for the first phase of the town center core. You may say, we want to move forward the exact same program as we had previously. It's good. It matches the vision. That's great. We've got concept drawings all for that. We can update our pro forma with that. Or you may say, we want to rethink the program in a different location, and then we want it to be strictly affordable housing. That will mean we need to, all right, step back, assess that market, assess that program, assess the site for that, and then sort of rethink an RFP process. Once we did get a development program, it would be evaluate those partnership strategies. So in a zero public participation strategy, what does that pro forma look like for the preferred development concept to you all? Would it be feasible for a developer to come in without any public participation? We'll assess that. And then we'll start to assess how can you all participate to make it financially feasible for a development partner. And then once you can endorse a strategy, we would then put it together an RFP and take it out for solicitation to find the private developer that aligns with your vision for this project. So the next slide is a potential timeline. Obviously, that's a lot of work, but this timeline is based on the assumption that we were able to go out with a very similar program to what we went out with originally, a mixed-use development, wrapping the library, ground floor commercial, multifamily residential above it. And things to consider would be the public amenities. Those we talked about the town green as part of the first phase. We know Armada Hoffler asked for a larger development pad, not just the 4 acres, but 6 acres to really realize a little bit larger portion of the vision of the town center. And so in 2020 would be to decision from you all to release a solicitation, us to work with you all to develop that program and that site and the mix of uses, draft the RFP, make sure that we edit it for your liking, and then hopefully in April, May 2020, take it out to solicitation. And again, this is assuming a very similar program. If we need to go to the drawing board in terms of affordable housing or a significant different use than what was previously, that's going to be, developing a significant new site plan. So I'm going to pause there, as this is the end of sort of the timeline of where we are and where we need to go, and leave it sort of open to you all for questions, conversation, and maybe let Martha interject here.
I'll just add a couple comments from staff's participation in this project, and probably ask you to do the hardest part of this process, which is leave a lot of our discussions about Armada Hoffler behind us. Let's start fresh. And I think one of the things that we'll talk about is, the public and private partnership investments are what we're asking you to affirm or reaffirm. And you can sort of start fresh on that. I'd offer tying it to one thing or another is less important than knowing how much of a public investment that you're going to support for a project in the amenities that we provide public versus what it is. One of the things that will also be really important to our future conversation is if phasing of some of those amenities is important to you, it's knowing that up front rather than after we've gone back. And when we were at our retreat last year, after I think 4 hours of conversation, we got to, you really were still affirming the guiding principles that Eric has put in this document. So some of the nuances were different, but the guiding principles, which are critical to the RFP process, were still in place. So we didn't divert really, really far from where we were, even though it seemed and felt that way. So there's really just some specific things in order to accelerate the project. There were some good value adds that we do need to discuss. The affordable housing, that is integral to an RFP process. Public transportation, we can manage and control and support the site. So it's what things need to be a part of that conversation and what doesn't, just as you think about that. And then remember is DFI has aligned their work very closely with all the work you're doing on your land use plan as well. And you came up with some visions from your land use plan discussions that very closely align to what DFI has proposed. So those still reaffirm we're on the right track. We just have to do those final refinements in order to go to our next step. And then I'll just offer, and we talked about this a little bit tonight with the parks. You see how long the timeline is from when you say go. It's still 6 months away to even start something. So that's what we have to keep in mind when we're looking at our timelines for projects like this.
Can I ask, how does this relate to the visual presentation we got the other day with the 3D modeling through an example town center?
Are you talking about from the land use plan process?
Yeah.
So the decisions that you were making with the land use were, in essence, less dense or more dense.
And we said more dense at that time.
Correct, and that aligns more with what this is. As Eric mentioned, some of those decisions that you need to make refine the model and the market analysis and what it's going to take for the project to be financially successful for a private developer to invest their money along with whatever our investment is. So as in life, you aren't getting something for nothing, but what we request influences a rate of return that a private developer is going to look at. And you hear that as you entertain development proposals all the time. They have to be able to pay themselves back, pay their investors, pay their bank, and still have some profit margin at the end, just like we want in the things that we do. And that's the balancing of whatever that proposal is, where we sort of hit our bump in the first part of the process is we asked for something, and then the reality of the market analysis didn't have that come to fruition, but we also changed some of the things that we were talking about. So the commitment has to be at the front end, not after the process has started.
And I would echo that the work that Halsey Levine has done in the sub-area plan for the town center core, we provided input, DFI has. I've worked with Nick Davis and their team to essentially make sure that the visions that they're showing you, all of these 3D models of people jumping in cars, but the building size, density, scale aligns with what the market is here in the triangle, knowing that they're from out of town. So that we've actually input sort of our market analysis and market understanding into their process so that what they're showing you aligns with what the market reality is as well. So the vision doesn't jump very far from what they're showing you to what essentially we've advised and helped them think through in terms of what it actually programmed that a developer would want to build here. So
it's very helpful because I think the council was very excited at what they showed us. So anyone have any other thoughts about what information we need or how we can help this process move forward?
Well, I have a question about the community center. I know that the back of the demonstration project, there was a potential community center, the Sawmill Creek kind of area. One thing that the council is exploring right now is a temporary location for a senior center until we find a permanent home. And I would love the permanent home to be in the town center, but we have that need as well as a large gathering space for just the community to do community activities. Right. So the community center to me, it still is something that resonates very strongly with myself as well as the constituents I've talked to, as well as the affordable housing. And we just had a presentation tonight about a very innovative approach to integrating workforce housing in an existing, standard model that is successful for that developer. And we're going to have to be innovative, I think, with this next step. But that community center, I'm intrigued. I don't know how to integrate it, but yet I know that's just such a need that we want to gather, because people call and ask for space, and we don't have large places to gather.
And the master plan, the big master plan does envision a community center type of facility. As it was outlined, it was a box.
Right.
You can define what that box is. We've also talked, as we've gone through some of the CIP, we have staff needs. There are many ways to house staff needs. That should go into those. We are there. We are there now. We have existing facilities. Do they come into play or not? There are all of those types of things, but those are the discussions before we go out, not after we go out.
Right, exactly. That was my next thing too. Is not only is a community need, but it's the staffing need, and we see at least 4 or 5 different departments that have outgrown their existing spaces.
And something we talked about within the original RFP, I don't know if you all remember this, was essentially that retail ground floor commercial space. Perhaps it could be designed in a way that could serve as a flex gathering space. I know it depends on the type of developer, the right developer that would want to do that, but it could be that community space that the town would lease, master lease from the developer for a set period of time. That would, one, alleviate concerns over the developer for finding retail tenants within this area for a period of time, and it could potentially be a strategy for you all to have that space for community gathering within the town center core while you flesh out the idea for the permanent community center within the town center core. So something we strategized about, and we didn't have any definitive sort of culmination of, yes, we brought that into the picture of consider this, developers, when putting together your RFP, and maybe we do that again still as a way to, one, bring people to the town center core, two, hit that need of community space, and three, make it more attractive and less risky for a developer knowing they have a credit tenant coming in.
Right, it's a win-win.
Yeah, so something worth evaluating and potentially incorporating back into the second round of the RFP.
Great, thank you.
Councilman Morrell?
Well, I mean, I think I want to thank you guys for continuing to work with us. I mean, where I get frustrated is I think that what we need to do as a council is I think we need to, the way I feel this process has been is that we went through the process of getting a model Hoffler, and it's like we were making progress, at least in the decision points, and then we came right back, we're starting all over. So it's almost like we're not, I mean, I think we have to decide what we want to do. I've talked to a lot of developers out there, and what they tell me is that, like Martha Page said, that town manager said, that their developers, regardless of how we do this, they have to make money, and that they're not going to be able to have the boutique retail and even support the anchors. Like, I think an anchor, like with a community center, I think there's a real need for a cultural performing arts center in Morrisville. A lot of these, we have a very international city, and a lot of these groups can't do anything in Morrisville because we don't have the space. So we have these needs even in our CIP, but it's not going to work without the rooftops. And so, we could issue another developer proposal, they're going to come back and say, you're going to have a certain amount of units. And I think that with Morrisville, there's always, right now, a concern about congestion and traffic. We're working through that through our own investments, but some of the DOT projects are getting delayed, so this is always going to be a concern, right? The other thing is that I think that in investment, so if we, I've researched these other downtowns around Wake County, around the state. You basically, no one's going to come and develop around the anchor if you don't have a couple $1 million worth of infrastructure investment. So I think that I'm committed to seeing, I would like to see us do something with the 10 acres that we have in a demonstration project, but also be realistic that if it's going to take another year to plan and we're once again back to where we were, someone comes in, I'm not trying to be negative Nelly here, but I just feel like, is it better, really that's where we need your guidance as we progress through the years. What is it better for us to look at, okay, we're just going to have this as a public amenity center, a larger town hall campus, a place where people can gather, and then at least we're doing something than talking about it for another year, because we've been you've been doing this for a long time. We have gotten nowhere. We've gotten lots of consulting. I didn't mean it that way, but I meant that by now.
We've gotten
No,
nowhere.
I didn't mean that in an insult. What I meant was that it's been a long time. There's been a lot of studies. There's been a lot of meetings. There's been a lot of talk, and we're nowhere farther than we were than when I joined the council in 2011. Yeah. And I'm not trying to be frustrated, but I also want to be realistic. Right. I think we have to. This is a checkpoint. What do we want to do with this?
Yeah, and I think just kind of taking one of your questions there of like, do we start from zero? And I don't think that's the case of all the information that we learned from the Armada Hoffler negotiation process. I think there's questions that we can ask earlier on in the process when identifying developers. That's going to be much more helpful to selecting a preferred developer in this process. And I think even during our developer engagement, developer outreach during the open solicitation period, a significant amount of developers were interested in the project but lacked capacity at that time. There's going to be a pool of developers that are at capacity. Hey, Wood Partners, for instance, they're working down the road. They don't want to have a competing project with one that they're trying to lease up. But there's other developers that have finished projects that are still excited about this market. So there's going to be a cycle of developers that will ask the right questions during the outreach period of what are those hurdle rates that you would want to see? Let's get a little bit more due diligence done during the due diligence period that we all have identified so that we can select a developer that is thought through the project before thinking through it after they've been selected. if that makes sense. So, yes, it's a very frustrating process that you had a developer on board, that a year of negotiations went through, but
My frustration isn't to be critical of anyone here at the table, or it's just critical of the process that we've gone through. And the frustration is that I want to see something done within the next, 4 to
Right.
5 years. Because we've been, and I think something can be done, but the reality is it's going to take investment. It's going to take commitment. I'm not so concerned about the financing and the money. I think that we have a staff that can figure that out, working with you guys. But we have to have a consensus of what that is. And I don't think you're going to have a downtown without the rooftops, without the residential. I mean, you can look at any top developer, including John Kane and North Hills. He'll tell you, in order to do development, you need rooftops, you need parking. Those are the two, and, that's the reality.
Thank you. I'd love to hear from Councilmember Garamilla.
Eric, I wanted to know what's the difference between the wetland park versus a nature park. I'm just trying to.
I might defer to Jerry on that one, but what I'm envisioning about a wetland park, or what we've all talked about in the past for this wetland park, was it's significant wetlands over there. It's a chance for trail systems, education, very passive recreation, not the active ball fields or those kind of community park amenities. So it's education, trail, signage, and sort of preserving the wetlands as a amenity for the town center. So,
It could be just open space, but that is part of the master plan. One of our deficiencies is just in open space.
Yeah,
and there's ways.
Yeah, so
to do
it's
that.
a very sort of unprogrammed and open space for the purpose of.
So what is it different than a nature park? Because that's also pretty much, in my lame terms, it's pretty much the
trees.
Yeah.
Same.
So
it's like it's again like could be wetlands.
Yeah,
That's a great
nature
question.
park, aside from the accessible area, is to connect the greenways. This would be additional connections to greenways, but education is one of the driving influences of the Crabtree Nature Park. Am I accurate, Jerry?
Yes, you are. And education components can be utilized at both locations, but this particular site that they're referring to is a very low area that floods frequently because of the water volume in that area and the size of the culvert, if you will, under 54. It's a very degraded area. The stormwater department's looked at it as a potential reclamation project because of the erosion is so bad in that area. So preserved open space, wildlife habitat's probably going to be the best use because of just the nature of the area. I'm not sure really how many even walking trails could be built in it, to be honest.
Just so that's okay. That's where I was looking for. And the other thing, every time I look at the chart from Murdo Hoffler, is the initial one where they offered 110 per acre, right? Like our prices have gone. Can we have an appraiser to really?
This one here. This was.
No, this was the original one. I was going for like 144 somewhere. No,
That's the one right up.
Is the first one?
The
What's
first
that?
one. The
You were
first
just
one.
there,
The
yeah.
first one. Now go up. About. No. There's one more slide.
No, actually, the 144 is there. So
No,
estimated
that's the
annual-
tax one. I was talking about the land cost that they were ready to offer us.
Yeah, they offered here $760,000 for I think it was 3.8 acres.
Okay.
It was right in about I forget the exact number, 225, 250 per acre.
Okay.
And then the second concept, the acquisition of the land was 1.1 million for approximately 6 acres.
And then, like what Steve said, what are our lessons learned for the council and you guys so that we have a clear understanding of how our RFPs are and our understanding so that we don't fall into the same thing. And that's something I'm looking for that because for me it is important. Everyone on this table was vested to go to it and then somewhere the cracks came through. and how can we make sure that the RFP is tight enough that there's no deviation and we can lock it up.
Right, and I think I think all of us at this table learned a lot about asking those extra questions in terms of rates of return, hurdle rate, expectations, expected public participation strategies, even though those were included within the original. So it's hard when a developer puts out a response that is in line with what the RFP asked for. So it was essentially a perfect response. And then they start to do their significant due diligence after that to say, well, we actually want to, our rate of return is higher than what was within the pro forma model that was provided to us. So there wasn't enough due diligence done by the developer before, and it was impossible for us to know based on they responded very perfectly to the response. So
do we need to increase the time of the RFPs when we open up?
Well, 90 days seems like a sufficient amount of time, which is in the timeline that we provided. Again, that's going to be something that we're going to have to evaluate, and those questions we'll have to ask those and ensure certain timelines are kept during the negotiation process rather than sort of the lengthy them drawing it out through their due diligence period that they did. So establishing a stricter set of timelines for them to provide, okay, here is our exact public participation strategy, here's that dollar amount, so that we can know much earlier on whether it's a go or no-go.
Can we also put a penalty, like if they deviate, the amount of, like a whole year got wasted because of this kind of issue? Because I do remember we were in the same table where we were thinking of going two-way approach, like let's solicit the other one too, and then we said, nah, I think Frank said, it's too much to handle, let's go with the one and then we can fall back on the other one. And so those kind of things I'm looking where we have to lock it up in such a way that it's only one step going forward, not coming back.
Yeah. Well, and something to consider is Armada Hoffler was committed to this project. They spent a year also working on it and hiring architects, engineers to evaluate and thinking through full development. So it wasn't like they were just wanting to waste a year of your time through negotiations. They were also wanted to try to make it work for them and their investment team back in their office. And they just, so yeah, maybe there is an option where we can bring multiple firms in to negotiate against. We'll talk through those strategies as we get closer to the date of releasing the solicitation. Once we have more clarity on what the program is that we want to see, what our public participation strategy we feel comfortable with here. Maybe it's moving the town green up to phase 1 with this development. Those are the things that we can work through. But yeah.
That came into it late in the conversation.
That came in late was let's incorporate the town green. Let's start to talk about upsizing it, right-sizing it, moving it. And so that was all stuff that we worked through this last time also.
These are a lot of things that we've learned.
Right.
So I think we're a lot more savvy going into this one. So it sounds like what you're proposing is we need to reaffirm guiding principles again, because that was last retreat. I think it's probably a good starting point. And from there, we can have an aspirational wish list of what we'd like to see, which would probably include affordable housing, might have some shared workspace, definitely have a town green, if we can sort of identify as a group what should be the minimum size of that, whether or not it should be in the demonstration or the first phase or where that should be, whether or not we're committed to leasing some of the space early to help with to make sure that they have some ROI right away. And town staff needs, we were to know what the minimum square footage was needed to just lease, or if we need a separate building to meet staff needs. These are things to just have as part of a wish list as we start the program.
So if I could offer, we need to get from aspirational wish list to concrete request very quickly.
I agree.
And each of those things, and I think that's what we're trying to indicate, just evaluating, for example, staff needs, that will take time to do and to discuss. So that's just moving from what you want to talk about to getting you that information. That's what has to happen before there's an RFP. Those are not things that we'll decide after the RFP's out. And we'll have to be committed to those if that's what we get back. I agree. It's been a long process. We're not at back to zero in my mind. I think there are a lot of things that we've learned about the process that will help us, but it's not, an RFP is not aspirational wish list. That's what we need to talk about, but we need to get there when you want to get there in order to get this out. And any of those decisions that we make, which I think DFI would support, they'll have to do that analysis to determine what we think levels of public and private investment would be in the model that we're asking for. It's not the same depending on what we ask for.
So you need to know that information now then. If we wait till the retreat to do that, that pushes this whole timeline.
It does, but I think that's sort of why we wanted to have this today, is so that we can hit it quickly in January.
And something that we talked about a lot during the negotiation process with Armand Hoffler was all of your vision components can't be realized in phase 1 of the town center. So this is phase 1A of a town center core vision, which is multiple phases. So I know we tried to achieve all of the interests and all the vision components in that first phase with our model, like, oh, we want to see the public open space, we want to see the ground floor commercial space, we want to see the activation. That's hard to achieve in 4 acres of land. And the ask of the developer was, a lot of them, they started to work and largen the green space and do all sorts of stuff. But just think about that also as priority 1 for the town center versus full vision sort of amenities and aspirational sort of components.
So, okay, so now I'm confused. Are we, so this is important to have this conversation. Are we talking about 4 acres? Or are we talking about 6 acres?
Well,
I think that's one of the things we have to talk about. I think what was clearly evident in all of the proposals was they had more opportunity the more they could develop up front. So our limitation of a demonstration project factored into that. And all of them were looking to be able to make more money across more acreage up front. And so that is a core discussion I think we need to have.
And something that we'll present to you all is what that 4-acre scenario looks like versus a 6-acre scenario. That, and understand that the 6-acre scenario included roughly an acre for a town green. So they expanded the program to be approximately 6 acres, but it had a significant public component associated with it also. So we'll show what that looks like, those 2 scenarios.
And all this is going to happen at the retreat.
Well, one of the requests I've made is for council to talk at your next meeting about the things that you want to talk about at a retreat. This is a logical retreat conversation, but we're going to talk about that on December 10th. And I think staff and I think DFI is committed to doing what we need to do to keep this accelerated. We're also not going to drive you to a decision until you're ready. And that's why we wanted to get you thinking about the things that really matter to you and what you want to talk about, so that we're not sitting around figuring out what we want to talk about at the retreat, but we're ready. And if you want us to do a homework exercise where we gather that information for you before the retreat, we can talk about that on December 10th as well.
Okay, yes.
I mean,
we need to have something in early January before we go into retreat. Otherwise, we're going to be a retreat saying we want, and you won't have.
Staff's primary goal in it's not going to be an extensive work session, but to talk about a retreat agenda is that gives us substantially more time than usual to start getting some materials prepared.
So I recall the Housel Levine video had the town green much later in the process. So I think the people around this table were committed to seeing the whole vision and not trying to accelerate and put the kitchen sink in the first phase. So we need to go ahead and reaffirm that as part of this process going forward, that we're willing to wait a little bit. We don't need to show the residents that we're having a town green right away or something else. We need to show our length of vision into the future. One thing that helped me a lot to see the other side of the coin is UNC School of Government has a public-private partnership workshop. And if that's coming up soon, I think it might be.
I think it was
just
last week.
It was conflicting with our meetings or something, so I saw
The toolbox.
The toolbox, developer finance toolbox, which is quite useful. If that's something that's coming up again soon, I'd suggest we all do that.
I believe that's a once-a-year class.
I think maybe twice, but maybe, yeah. Led by Tyler.
Tyler Mulligan.
I mean, I've taken that class. The resources are not that dated if that's information that, wants to get shared. I'll offer this. It's not our job to figure out the development finance toolbox. That's why we have them, to give us that information.
That's what we bring
help
to
us.
these meetings, is essentially thinking like the developer. And
I felt
how you all can participate to attract a private developer to realize your goals.
I agree with the mayor that the understanding the process is very helpful. And again, that's part of what we learned through some of this process, is just sort of how it works, that perhaps we weren't fully prepared for at the front end of the process.
Yeah, I mean, there's a hard number that they have to meet. If they're not going to meet it, that's it. So that's just an important thing to know. And parking is going to be a big ask this time. So we just need to be really clear who's doing it, and if they're doing it, does that mean we're paying for it anyway, even though they're doing it? So not to rehash, but I think those are things that will help us a lot, that we've been through this a couple of times.
And if I could add onto that, again, another challenge is, if we recognize that there's some public participation in a public-private partnership, does it matter whether it's a parking lot or something else? It's dollars. Does it really matter after that where it gets assigned? So just another way to look at that is, don't assign that participation to one thing versus the whole accomplishment of the goal. And maybe that makes it better. It's money in to get what you want, not the specific components of the project.
That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah, so examples of other towns and how much they had to invest to make things happen would help us to be more comfortable with that, because then we can take that to the residents and say, this is what we want, this is how we get it. So I think that's a little bit of a hesitance. This is our biggest investment that we've considered as a council ever. It's like buying our first house. So we need to really be all in.
I think Martha summed it up so well. I think that's the problem. Yeah, because it's not about who pays for what and how much amount. It's, the big picture. At the end of the day, it's an investment that has to be made anyway. And that's what I think's been holding us back.
I just had a thought. When you said you bring us some examples. I would try to bring us examples that are close to our size.
Yeah, we know some
know
smaller
you do.
communities and examples down the street of that we can kind of hone in on and understand sort of the partnership strategies around those. So
I would say local is good.
Yes.
And,
So who's our contact? You will be I know Todd was.
Actually, Brandon's getting up to speed pretty quickly, but I won't leave him out to dry until he gets his.
So it's Todd's file cabinet.
Dive right in.
Yeah. So, and if we had to reach out to you, like to brainstorm, how was the process? I just wanted to.
So I think probably the three of us will work on it felt to at least Jeannie and I that the way we tried to craft some questions to probe a little bit on some of the policy development stuff we're working on helped you. I think we can try to develop something very similar for this. You've actually done some of that already. That was one of your CIP policy exercises. Now we're putting it back into the pot that we already been stirring around a little bit.
Cool. Yeah, homework really probed us and get us to share and showed how we were more aligned than
Yeah,
not.
so some of it, I mean, some of that you've already done. So.
Okay. So, any questions, concerns?
I would just want to chime in. I appreciate all the help you've been over the years. You did. I think we're headed in the right direction.
One thing
to me, there was the market value that the market analysts that I think got us off track. But I would just say, look back, has anything changed? I mean, we have some things going in tonight. We heard, for instance, Morrisville Mall, $52 million. We have the bypass going in. Development community wants to buy up that land and develop it. I know that in news and notes, we just had the 4540, a business park put in, and what are they doing? They're putting in a parking deck. So I would, again, I keep on bringing up development pays for it around here, but, you know, so I'd just like to set the table right, that they would go ahead and do it.
Yeah, we just performed a refresh of the market analysis also, understanding that the one that we put in the RFP was several years old. Obviously, all of the dynamics of this area and the development that's occurring here. So we pretty caught up to speed with all the development activity and what developers are doing in terms of mixed-use development, how they're building, what kind of product types. And obviously, we always have to consider the mixed-use nature, the town center core, sort of density preferred. So, yeah, we're evaluating that and seeing what's going on in the market.
Yeah.
And I agree, like the rents are going up because News and Observer recent article talks about it, and so when the Armada Hoffer used that as point, things have
One
changed.
thing we'll note is that construction costs are also going up quite dramatically, so don't assume too much, even though the market is incredibly strong today. We really do have to dig into the full financials to make sure that we're going to chin that end bar that we've all been talking about in this conversation. So potentially some great things that give us some wind at our back going into this process, but we don't want to be overconfident until we, as a group, fully look into all of the most current information.
One thing that would help me a lot is staff has mentioned a couple of times staff needs, and those are going up, and new town hall has sort of bubbled up tangentially a couple of times, so it'd be good to know where the support is for that and thoughts about that. Because if we're looking to put town staff in the town center core, is that going to help activate it? Is that going to take up space? Is that the best place to put town staff? So that's something that I think we should discuss instead of just sort of mentioning it every once in a while. I think we should try to have a really good discussion about if we need to centralize town staff, should it be in the town core or should we leave it sort of here to the side? I think that will help us make a good decision that will be long-term, whether or not that should be located and if we should actually have a new town hall or if this is going to be sufficient forever. That's something we need to decide. If it's going to be in the town center, we need to start talking about it.
We're growing.
We're growing. Does this room meet our needs and build out, essentially? If we don't think so, that's a decision that... And it doesn't have to be either a community center or a new town hall, and it could be both. These are things that, if we're going to really be visionary, we should have these conversations.
Like Kannapolis.
Yeah. 2 years ago was Kannapolis. They made a big step, and they have a really nice place.
How are they doing? I wonder.
So, they've really been working on the baseball component.
Well, they have a developer broke ground on their mixed-use development on their main street. They did a full streetscape, public infrastructure redevelopment. And that was because there were other complications. There was one property owner for the full downtown.
Right.
But they put all new public infrastructure in their downtown core, mixed-use development coming in on that main street, the stadium also. Significant public investments up front.
Yeah.
Partnered around the parking deck with that mixed-use development for, I think, 220 residential units and ground floor commercial. I could give you a primer on Kannapolis next time if you'd like sort of an update, refresh on where Kannapolis is.
How's RTP coming along?
RTP?
With
their mixed use.
Yeah, all that. Do they have any changes?
That's on hold.
I don't,
They're
the first component, their first phase.
Retail.
What is it?
The box yard is
Box
just
yard.
that's not really part of that.
Yeah.
It's just an amendment.
Yeah, but obviously something within the market analysis, understanding all the pipeline projects that are going on also.
Right.
Okay, 59 minutes. Well done.
1 hour.
Paul.
It's an hour.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Any other questions for them? Any questions for us?
That was good, thank
That
you.
was very helpful, I think, for everybody. Get a refresh. Anything else for the good of the order? Town manager? Council comments? We good? I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries unanimously 6-0. It is 9:06. We are adjourned. Thank you all.